Story 1. 6 years ago, my brother slept with my GF when I was planning to propose. Now, at our father's funeral, he walked in holding her hand and said, "Some guys just finish first. Too bad the old man never figured that out." I stayed silent, then watched him spiral at the will hearing. Sup, Reddit. 6 years ago, my brother stole the love of my life. They betrayed me, then got married. My dad cut him off ever since. Now at his funeral, my brother showed up with my ex and tried to humiliate me. His smirk faded at the will hearing. He never saw that coming. Here's what went down. I, 26 male, had it all figured out. I'm a structural engineer for a decent firm in Portland. 40,000 saved for a house, and most importantly, I was about to propose to Allison. We'd been together for 2 years. She'd stay over 3 nights a week, had her own drawer in my dresser, and knew how I liked my coffee. I had the ring and was planning the whole thing. Then my brother Brandon decided he wanted what I had. Brandon's the golden boy. 2 years older, real estate hotshot pulling $120,000, selling overpriced condos to tech bros. Porsche Cayenne, downtown penthouse, designer everything. Shows up to family dinner talking about disrupting markets, while mom hangs on every word like he's delivering the gospel of success. Mom always made it clear which son mattered. Brandon got the praise, the bragging rights, the pride. I got lectures about applying myself and living up to my potential. Even when I landed decent engineering work, it was always, "That's nice, honey," but Brandon just closed another $1 million listing. One Thursday, Allison asked to meet at our coffee shop. Had that look like she was solving a math problem? She told me she needed someone who could actually provide, someone with real ambition, someone who understood what success looked like. This is about Brandon, isn't it? Yes. Turns out Golden Boy had been working on her for weeks. Expensive dinners, luxury listings, showing off bank statements. He'd taken her to see some seven-figure penthouse, promised her that lifestyle. She told me with a straight face that she'd already screwed him. Last weekend, while I was at a conference. "He's going to propose," she said, cold as ice. "Already looking at rings. Real ones." Then came the kicker. "Brandon said you'd probably just sit there and take it. Said you never fight for anything." That's right. I stood up. "Good luck, Allison." Then I walked out. First call I made was to Billy. Best friend since we were 8, Puerto Rican kid with a smart mouth who became the brother I actually wanted. While Brandon played Golden Boy, Billy and I built tree forts and got into trouble. After high school, he'd worked his way up at Dad's construction supply company. Warehouse to inventory to operations. Dad called him his right-hand man. Trusted Billy more than his own sons. I told him everything. He wasn't surprised about Allison, but Brandon going full supervillain? That pissed him off. 3 days later, Brandon brought Allison to Sunday dinner, announcing their engagement. Dad walked out mid-meal. When Brandon called me that night with his fake concerned voice, I hung up. Blocked them both. Dad didn't take it well. First time I'd seen him truly angry at his Golden Boy. Called Brandon a disgraceful piece of shit. Cut off his access to family money. Froze him out completely. Mom, of course, blamed me. Called crying about how I was tearing the family apart and letting jealousy make me vindictive. According to her, I should be mature enough to accept that Allison had chosen what was best for her future. "You're embarrassing us all with this grudge, Jensen. People are starting to talk." That's what she cared about. What people would say at the country club. 2 months later, engagement photos on Facebook. They had their big Napa wedding the next spring. That was 6 years ago. 6 years of pretending I didn't care while Brandon treated me like the family charity case. And Mom acted like I was the problem child for not getting over it. 6 years of family dinners where she'd introduce Brandon as my successful son in real estate and me as just my other son. 6 years of Billy being the only one who reminded me I wasn't crazy. Fast forward to 3 weeks ago. Dad's funeral. Lung cancer finally got him after 2 years of fighting. Not going to lie, I cried. Despite everything, despite feeling like the family scapegoat for half my life, I loved the old man. I drove up from Seattle. See? After the Allison situation imploded, I had two choices. Stay in Portland feeling sorry for myself or use the rage as fuel. I chose door number 2. 6 months after she left, I was headhunted by a Seattle firm working on high-rise projects. Not just any buildings, luxury towers, mixed-use developments, the kind of structures that change city skylines. The pay bump was massive, from $65,000 to $95,000 overnight. 2 years in, I started consulting on weekends. Nothing big at first, just reviewing structural plans for smaller firms, catching mistakes that could cost millions. Word spread fast. Seattle's construction boom was exploding, and everyone needed qualified engineers who could move fast without cutting corners. The consulting work led to a partnership opportunity with Cascade Engineering Solutions. They needed someone who understood both structural design and project management. By year 4, we were pulling in over $300,000 annually in contracts. That's when I met Anna. Anna rode shotgun to the funeral, looking like she'd stepped out of a magazine in her black Armani dress. My wife of 3 years, blonde, brilliant, and from one of those Seattle families where old money actually means something. Met her at a charity auction for Seattle Children's Hospital. She outbid some Amazon exec on a sculpture just to watch him sulk, then bought me a drink and said, "You look like you have stories." Her father was Richard Blackwood. Blackwood Construction and Development. Old Seattle money that had been building the city since the 1940s. Real estate empire worth hundreds of millions. Dating Anna opened doors I didn't even know existed. Her father's company became one of our biggest clients. We got married 2 years later at the Olympic Club. Understated ceremony, but the guest list read like a who's who of Pacific Northwest business leaders. Brandon wasn't invited. Neither was Mom. So when I pulled up to Dad's funeral, I wasn't the broke engineer Brandon remembered. I was driving a Tesla, wearing a custom suit, and my wife had more connections than his entire real estate network. I got to the church early, grabbed a seat in the back. Billy was already there, 3 rows up, wearing a suit. Caught his eye and got a nod that said everything. We're getting through this together. And screw anyone who tries to make it about drama. Billy had been running Dad's day-to-day operations for the past 3 years. What started as warehouse management had evolved into complete operational control. Dad trusted him. Anna squeezed my hand. "Remember what we discussed. You're here to honor your father, not engage with family bullshit." Then Brandon made his entrance, 20 minutes late, because of course he was. Strutting down the center aisle like he was walking the red carpet, wearing a charcoal Tom Ford suit. Had his Rolex Submariner catching the light just right. Nothing says grieving son quite like making your dead father's funeral about your outfit. And holding his hand? Allison. She looked different. Still beautiful, obviously, but there was something brittle about her now, like she was trying too hard to look happy. The dress was designer but felt wrong on her somehow. Too much like a real estate trophy wife costume. I'd heard through the grapevine that their marriage wasn't the fairy tale she'd expected. Brandon's income had been dropping steadily as the real estate market shifted. Word was they'd had to downsize from the penthouse to a regular condo. As they walked past my row heading to the family section, Brandon leaned in just close enough for me to hear. "Some guys just finish first. Too bad the old man never figured that out." Loud enough that Mrs. Henderson turned around. The asshole had just disrespected our dead father at his own funeral. I didn't flinch. Just smiled back and said, "You still flipping houses for a living?" His smirk faltered. Brandon's whole identity was wrapped up in being the successful brother. Calling it flipping houses reduced his empire to what it really was, sales. But the real punch came when Frank Carson walked over and shook my hand. "Jensen, sorry for your loss, son. Your father was proud as hell of what you built in Seattle. Always bragging about his boy who started his own firm, landed those big construction contracts." Brandon's head snapped around. I could see him processing what he'd just heard. "Structural engineering, right?" Frank continued. "Smart move. Joseph said you were pulling in over $400,000 last year doing design work for those high-rise projects." Anna stood to shake Frank's hand. "Frank Carson, I think you know my father, Richard Blackwood. He's mentioned your work on the Harbor District project." Frank's eyes lit up. "Blackwood's daughter? Hell, your dad and I go way back. How's he doing?" As Anna chatted with Frank about her father's construction investments, I watched Brandon's face cycle through confusion, calculation, and dawning realization that maybe I hadn't been sitting in Seattle feeling sorry for myself. After the service, Billy found me near the flowers. "Did you see Brandon's face when he heard 7 figures?" "Even better when he realized Anna's connected," I said. "You should have seen him trying to Google Blackwood Construction on his phone." Brandon tried to corner us both near the exit. Started going on about moving forward as a family and how someone's going to need to step up and take leadership of Dad's business. "Someone already has," Billy said calmly. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Means exactly what I said." Anna appeared at my elbow with 2 cups of coffee. "Gentlemen," she nodded at Brandon, "you must be the real estate brother. I've heard so much about you." The way she said it made it sound like a medical condition. The will reading was scheduled for the Monday after the funeral. Family only, plus the lawyer. Some guy who'd been handling Dad's affairs for the past decade. We met at Dad's house, the family estate that had been in the Langston family for 3 generations. Big colonial thing on 5 acres outside town. Brandon and Allison were already there when I arrived, sitting in the front parlor like they owned the place. Brandon had changed into what he probably thought was serious business attire: navy blazer with gold buttons, slacks with a perfect crease. Even at a will reading, the bastard couldn't help but peacock. Billy was in the kitchen with Mom, who was doing that thing she does when she's nervous, cleaning things that are already clean while complaining about how inappropriate it was that Acola had scheduled this during her book club week. When he saw me, Billy gave me a look that said, "This is going to be interesting." "Jensen," Mom said when she saw me, forcing one of those tight smiles, "you could have at least worn a tie. This is a formal legal proceeding." Then she saw Anna, and her expression went through a fascinating series of micro-adjustments. Anna was wearing a simple black dress, her blonde hair in a perfect chignon, diamond earrings that caught the light just right. "And you must be," Mom began. "Anna Langston," Anna said, extending a manicured hand. "Jensen's wife. Mrs. Langston, I'm so sorry for your loss." Mom's smile froze. The lawyer arrived precisely at 2 p.m. Briefcase in one hand, manila folder in the other, expression that suggested he'd rather be auditing tax returns than dealing with family drama. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, settling behind Dad's old desk, "thank you for being here today. Before we begin with the formal reading, I want to mention that Mr. Langston updated his will approximately 1 year ago." I caught Brandon's eyes narrow slightly at that. He'd probably been counting on some old version where he got the lion's share by default. Acola cleared his throat and began reading. The usual lawyer speak at first, then he got to the good stuff. "To my wife Margaret," the lawyer read, "I leave the sum of $250,000 in cash assets, plus the contents of our joint savings and checking accounts, and full ownership of the 2019 Mercedes E-Class sedan. To my son and Brandon," the lawyer continued, and Brandon leaned forward slightly, "I leave my collection of vintage golf clubs, my watch collection, and the sum of $50,000. Brandon's face went through this fascinating series of micro-expressions. 50 grand is nice, but it's not heir to the family fortune money. "To my son Jensen," the lawyer read, "I leave the family residence and all real estate holdings, valued at approximately $1.1 million, along with all contents therein." You could have heard a pin drop. Brandon's magazine hit the floor. "What?" Brandon said, his voice cracking slightly. "That has to be wrong." The lawyer didn't even look up. "The document is quite clear, Mr. Langston." Brandon stood up, knocking over his glass of water. The ice cubes scattered across Mom's Persian rug like his composure. "This is ridiculous. Dad promised me that house years ago. I was going to develop the back acreage, turn it into luxury homes. We had plans." "Please sit down, Mr. Langston," the lawyer interrupted. Brandon didn't sit. He was staring at me, face flushed red above his perfectly knotted tie. "What did you do, Jensen? What did you say to him? Did you poison him against me?" "Nothing," I said evenly. "Maybe he just saw things for what they were." The lawyer continued down the list. "Stocks, accounts, trust funds. Some to me, some to charitable causes. Dad had supported quietly over the years. Small things to extended family. Then he dropped the nuclear bomb. And now, as for the remaining family business assets," the lawyer said, "including Langston Construction Supply and its controlling 51% majority shares. These are left to Billy Lopez, who has been specifically named as Mr. Langston's chosen successor for business operations." The room went still. Even I was caught off guard, though I shouldn't have been. Billy had been Dad's right hand for years, but seeing it official was something else. Brandon's eyes went wide. "What? Billy? Are you freaking kidding me? He's not even family." "Actually," Billy said quietly, "he is, just not blood family." "Oh, but I'm his son." Brandon was standing now, his voice getting higher. "I have a right to that business." The lawyer looked up. Mr. Langston explicitly stated that he had lost confidence in both of his sons' ability to manage the business responsibly. He chose Mr. Lopez based on his demonstrated loyalty, business acumen, and understanding of the company's operations and values. "Both sons?" Brandon spun around to look at me. "What did you do?" "Nothing. I moved to Seattle, remember? I haven't been involved in the business for years." "But Billy works for me." Brandon was completely losing it now. "I mean, he works for the family business. I'm the heir. I have rights." "Mr. Brandon Langston retains no shares or authority in Langston Construction Supply," the lawyer continued calmly. "Mr. Lopez has full voting control and operational authority." That was when Brandon completely lost his shit. He shot up from his chair so fast it toppled backward, his face going purple with rage. "This is fucking bullshit!" he screamed. "That vindictive old bastard! He did this to get back at me! Brandon! Mom gasped. No, screw this! Brandon was pacing now. 6 years! 6 fucking years he punished me over some girl, over Jensen's hurt feelings. And now he gives everything to the hired help. Billy stood up slowly. Watch your mouth. Or what? Brandon spun around, his face twisted with fury. You'll fire me? Oh, wait, you can't! I don't work for you! I never worked for you! You're just some punk from the neighborhood who got lucky! Brandon, I said quietly, but Billy held up a hand. Let him talk, Billy said, his voice calm, but his eyes dangerous. I want to hear what he really thinks. You want to know what I think? Brandon was completely unhinged now. I think you've been kissing the old man's ass for years, waiting for your chance to cash in. I think you manipulated him into believing you were more trustworthy than his own sons. I think you're a fucking parasite who... Billy moved fast for a guy in a cheap suit. 1 second he was standing by the mantel, the next he was in Brandon's face. Your father, Billy said quietly, was the best man I ever knew. He taught me everything about running a business, about treating people with respect, about what loyalty actually means. And you just called him a vindictive old bastard at his own will reading. Brandon took a step back, suddenly aware that Billy was bigger than him and had been working with his hands for 15 years. He was a bitter old man who couldn't let go of a grudge, Brandon continued, but with less conviction. All those years talking about family values and loyalty, and he leaves everything to strangers. The room was dead silent, except for Brandon's heavy breathing. Are you done? Billy asked quietly. Brandon stared at him, chest heaving, his perfect hair finally mussed. Then he seemed to realize what he'd just said, how completely he'd revealed himself. But instead of apologizing, he doubled down. You know what? I'm glad he's dead. At least now I don't have to pretend to respect the miserable old shit. That was the final straw. Even Mom gasped and covered her mouth. Billy's face went cold. Get out! What? Get out of this house. Now. You can't throw me out of my own family home. It's not your family home, I said quietly. It's mine. And I'm telling you the same thing. Get out. Anna stood up. Actually, Brandon, I think what Jensen means is security will escort you out if you're not gone in 60 seconds. Brandon looked around the room wildly, like he was expecting someone to back him up. Mom was crying. The lawyer was staring in horror. Allison was watching like she was studying a particularly interesting insect. This isn't over, Brandon said, his voice shaking with rage. This whole thing is bullshit and everyone knows it. You think I'm just going to walk away from what my father built? Yeah, Billy said. That's exactly what you're going to do. Anna checked her watch. 30 seconds. Brandon and Allison left in a storm of slamming doors and squealing tires. After they were gone, Billy sat down heavily in Dad's old chair. Jesus, he said. I knew he was an asshole, but that was next level. You okay? I asked. Billy looked around the room. At the family photos, the furniture Dad had picked out, the life he'd built. Your dad saved my life, man. When my mom died, when my stepdad was drinking himself to death, Joseph Langston gave me a job, gave me purpose, treated me like family. And that piece of shit just called him a bitter old man. Dad knew what he was doing, I said. He picked the right person. So what happens now? Mom asked, still dabbing at her eyes. Billy and I looked at each other. Then Billy smiled. The same grin I'd known since we were kids. Now we run a construction supply company. And if Brandon wants to try to take it from us, well, he shrugged. Should be interesting. Anna leaned back in her chair. Oh, this is going to be fun. 2 weeks later, Brandon made his move. 2 weeks after the will reading, Billy and I were trying to figure out how to run a construction supply company from 300 miles away. Billy had driven down for the weekend to go over the books. We were sitting in my kitchen Thursday evening when Billy dropped the bomb. Brandon contacted me. Anna looked up from her laptop where she'd been researching construction supply market trends. Already? Dude doesn't waste time. It started about a week after the will reading, Billy explained. Checking in texts, then escalating to offers of help with family dynamics and client relationships. Brandon claimed some of our bigger clients had personal relationships with him through real estate deals. Billy showed me the text thread. Brandon was positioning himself as indispensable, claiming exclusive access to key accounts like Carson Construction and Henderson Builders. When Billy didn't jump at his initial offer to help with the transition, Brandon sweetened the pot. 50 grand just to call him a consulting partner. When I didn't bite, he upped it to 100. Plus, percentage of new business. Brandon kept pushing the smart money finds a way to work together angle. Said family businesses that don't adapt usually fail during first-generation transitions. Billy had done his homework. Brandon's real estate business was tanking. Commission income down 60% from 2 years ago, from 120,000 to under 50,000 annually. He needed legitimacy more than money. If he could claim partnership in Langston Construction Supply, he could leverage that to win back clients. Nothing quite like desperation dressed up as a business opportunity. Then Billy showed me Brandon's latest text. Been thinking about our conversation. I know 100 grand seems like a lot, but think long-term value. I've got 3 major development deals that could bring 200,000 plus in business over the next 2 years. Plus, my real estate network could be a game changer for premium materials. Let's meet this week. Billy's accountant had pulled Brandon's old tax returns. Dude had been living beyond his means for years, propped up by the real estate business that was now collapsing. Brandon's credit cards were maxed out, his mortgage was underwater, and he'd borrowed against his car to pay last month's condo fees. He's desperate enough to throw serious money around to get back in, Billy said. So what do we do? Billy got that look smile, figuring out how to get out of trouble. We let him think he's being clever while we document everything. Then when he's committed fully to whatever scheme he's planning, we shut it down publicly and permanently. Anna closed her laptop. You need legal documentation. My father's firm handles corporate fraud cases. I can have someone brief you on what constitutes admissible evidence. 2 days later, Brandon called Billy directly, claiming he had time-sensitive opportunities and clients ready to walk without continuity and family leadership. Game on, Anna said when I told her. Dad's lawyer will walk Billy through the recording laws and evidence requirements. This is about to get interesting. Billy texted me before he answered Brandon's call. Showtime, recording everything. I was in my home office when my phone buzzed with Billy's live updates. Brandon's really pushing now. Wants to meet next Tuesday. Claims he's got time-sensitive opportunities that can't wait. Now he's saying he's already been talking to some of our clients informally. Just checking in on behalf of the family. Holy shit. He just offered me $150,000 plus a company car. Dude is desperate. An hour later, Billy called me. He's completely lost it, Billy said. I've never heard him sound so frantic. He's claiming he's got clients ready to walk if there isn't continuity and family leadership during the transition. What clients? Carson Construction, for one. Said Frank Carson specifically told him he was concerned about working with new management and would feel more comfortable if Brandon was involved. That's bullshit. Carson loves you. I know, but Brandon doesn't know that I know that. So I told him I was interested in hearing more about these client concerns and suggested we set up a meeting where he could explain the situation in detail. And he jumped at it. Wants to meet at his office on Tuesday. Said he could show me documentation of his client relationships and walk me through his vision for strategic partnership. Billy paused. Jensen, I think he's going to try to claim he already has authority to negotiate on behalf of the business. Or at least that clients think he does. Anna had been listening from the kitchen. It's a one-party consent state, right? Yep, I can record everything legally. And I've already talked to Dad's lawyer about what constitutes fraud versus legitimate business discussion. What's the line? Basically, if he claims to have authority he doesn't actually have, or if he tries to make commitments on behalf of the company without authorization, that's fraud. If he's just talking about potential opportunities and being clear about his actual role, that's legal. Think he's smart enough to stay on the legal side? Billy laughed. Have you met your brother? The dude's about to walk into a meeting where he tries to convince me to pay him 6 figures to protect business relationships he doesn't actually have. Smart isn't the word I'd use. Anna appeared with 3 cups of coffee. Dad's attorney briefed me on the potential charges. If Brandon's been representing himself as having authority he doesn't possess, we're looking at wire fraud, business identity theft, and racketeering, federal crimes with serious jail time. Billy had also done some investigating on his own. Brandon's desperation wasn't just about money. His reputation in the real estate community was completely shot. 3 former clients had filed formal complaints with the state licensing board. His broker had already suspended him pending investigation. That's when I realized what Dad had been protecting the business from all these years. Tuesday couldn't come fast enough. Brandon's office was all flash, no substance. Glass walls, leather furniture that cost more than most cars, motivational posters screaming luxury and premium, the kind of setup designed to impress clients who didn't look too closely. Billy texted me from the lobby. Going up. Phone recording. This better be good. An hour later, Billy called from his car in the parking garage. Holy shit, Jensen. Your brother just committed about 15 different felonies. While I recorded every word. Brandon had set up a whole presentation, PowerPoint slides, financial projections, the works. Started with his speech about family legacy and strategic partnerships. Then he got into his existing client relationships and how contractors had expressed concerns about the transition. Then he shows me the contracts. What contracts? Forged agreements with Carson Construction, Coastal Development, and Henderson Builders, all dated last week, all showing Brandon as family business liaison for Langston Construction Supply, authorized to negotiate pricing. But it got worse. Brandon had been using fake contracts to negotiate deals with suppliers, telling Pacific Materials he was handling purchasing for Langston Construction Supply and pocketing bulk discount differences. The scheme was more elaborate than I'd expected. Brandon had created professional-looking letterhead, business cards, even a fake employee ID badge. He'd been walking into supplier meetings, presenting himself as the family representative, managing the transition period. Pacific Materials had given him a 15% bulk discount rate reserved for long-term partners. He had been ordering supplies at the discounted rate, then selling them to small contractors at full markup and keeping the difference. Over the past month, he'd pocketed nearly $8,000 this way. And the best part? He's incorporated Langston Premium Construction Supply. Using Dad's photo on the website, copying our marketing materials, telling clients it's the premium division of our company. He's using Dad's photo? Front and center, under a banner saying, "Continuing a legacy of excellence." The jerk is literally stealing Dad's image to build a competing business. Billy had recorded everything, including Brandon offering him $200,000 and a management title to endorse his new company and help transition our client base. He called it facilitating a strategic merger, but basically asked me to help him gut Langston Construction Supply and rebuild it under his control. Oh, and he wants to use your house as collateral for a business loan. Brandon had apparently talked to investors about his premium construction supply concept, and they wanted to see assets. He'd asked if I'd put the house up as security for a family business investment. The investors he'd mentioned weren't real investors. They were loan sharks who specialized in asset-backed loans for failing businesses. Brandon was so deep in debt that legitimate lenders wouldn't touch him. I told him I was impressed and needed time to review everything. Asked him to email me all the documentation. And he did that? Already sent everything. Forged contracts, supplier agreements, business plan, investor pitch deck. Complete with financial projections, assuming we'd hand over our entire client base. Billy was back at the warehouse. He'd called Dad's lawyer and was setting up a meeting with the DA's office. 2 hours later, Billy called back. Carson Construction, Coastal Development, Henderson Builders. Brandon contacted all of them this past week, claiming to be a transitional business manager for Langston Construction Supply. He'd told them there might be service disruptions during ownership change, but he could guarantee continuity if they signed new agreements with Langston Premium Construction Supply, described as the upgraded division of our operation. Carson told him to back off. Henderson hung up. But Coastal Development was actually considering it because Brandon showed them forged contracts and convinced them he had legitimate authority. How many laws has he broken? I stopped counting at 12, but the prosecutor seemed very interested. This kind of systematic business fraud is exactly what they like to prosecute. Anna was researching federal fraud statutes when I got home. Your brother is looking at 5 to 10 years minimum. The identity theft alone is a felony, but business fraud with forged documents? The feds are going to love this case. The prosecutor Billy met with specialized in white-collar crime. She'd seen cases like this before. Desperate business owners trying to leverage family connections into fraudulent opportunities. What made Brandon's case particularly egregious was the nature of the deception and his willingness to use his dead father's image and reputation. 3 days later, Brandon walked into his own trap. The final meeting was set for Friday afternoon. Billy had convinced Brandon he was ready to move forward with the partnership, but wanted to review final details and timeline. I drove up Thursday night and met Billy at the warehouse. We spent the morning with a cola and the prosecutor going over the plan. Let Brandon explain his full scheme on camera, get him to confirm the forged documents, then let the law handle the rest. He's already committed multiple felonies, the prosecutor explained. At this point, he could confess, and we'd still convict. But if he doubles down, he'll dig his own grave, Billy finished. Anna had flown up that morning with Richard Blackwood's corporate attorney, one of the best white-collar crime lawyers on the West Coast. Professional courtesy, she explained. Dad wanted to make sure this was handled correctly. At 2 p.m., Billy walked into Brandon's office wearing a wire and carrying documents that would end my brother's career permanently. I waited in Dad's lawyer's office with Anna and her father's attorney, listening to the live audio feed. Brandon's voice came through confident and excited, ready to make real money. Billy played along, saying he'd reviewed everything and was impressed. Brandon launched into his presentation about strategic partnerships. He'd been having informal conversations with clients to assess the situation during the transition. He showed Billy the forged contracts, all showing Brandon as authorized representative for Langston Construction Supply. I explained to them that I was handling the transitional period while you got up to speed, Brandon said on the recording. But you don't actually have authority to represent Langston Construction Supply. I have family authority. I'm Joseph Langston's son. Billy kept pushing. When he asked about the bulk purchasing agreements Brandon had negotiated using our company name, Brandon called them preliminary arrangements for when they fully launched the premium operation, using forged authorization documents. Forged is a strong word. I prefer provisional. The attorney was taking notes, shaking his head. This idiot is confessing to everything on tape. Brandon explained his business model. He'd created Langston Premium Construction Supply to honor the family legacy while positioning properly in the luxury market. When Billy pointed out the legal implications, Brandon waved them off. This is a family business. You think Joseph Langston built his company worrying about every little legal technicality? Actually, yes. He was obsessive about doing things right. Look where doing things right got him. Dead at 68. That's when Billy's voice went quiet. Excuse me? Brandon doubled down, calling Billy great at operations, but clueless about business development. Said Jensen was good with engineering, but didn't understand the business side of construction. Without someone who understood both industries, the business would fail. So you're doing us a favor. I'm trying to save the family legacy and make us all rich. By stealing our clients and setting up a competing business? By evolving the business model. When Billy called it fraud, Brandon told him to get out. Called Billy Joseph Langston's charity case and an employee with a fancy title. I'll build this business myself, and when Langston Construction Supply goes under, I'll be there to pick up the pieces. The attorney looked up from his notes. That's a conspiracy to commit business fraud. Federal prosecutors love that charge. 20 minutes later, Billy texted me. It's happening. The cops walked into his office while he was on the phone with another potential victim. Billy watched through the glass wall as Brandon's face went from confusion to panic. Brandon Langston? The lead detective said, flashing his badge. What's this about? Wire fraud, business identity theft, conspiracy? You're under arrest. That's when he completely lost it. Started screaming about family businesses and misunderstandings while they cuffed him. This is bullshit! Billy, tell them! We had a deal! Billy just stood there, arms crossed. What deal? Brandon's voice cracked like a 13-year-old. You piece of shit! This is my family's business! Not anymore. As they dragged him out, Brandon was screaming loud enough for the whole building to hear. You will regret this! I will make you pay! This isn't over! Billy called after him. Good luck with that. Police found boxes of forged documents, stolen client lists, and a business plan outlining his strategy for acquiring our customer base through transitional negotiations. The cherry on top? Brandon's assistant quit on the spot and asked Billy if we were hiring. Anna was scrolling through her phone when the arrest news broke. Brandon's mugshot is already online. Allison must be having a great day. Brandon was charged with 12 felonies. His lawyer recommended immediate plea deal. 2 weeks later, Allison filed for divorce. Brandon pled guilty to 8 counts, got 18 months federal prison, 3 years probation, and permanent ban from construction or real estate in Oregon and Washington. His business was dissolved, assets seized for restitution, reputation destroyed. We kept every client Brandon tried to steal. Word travels fast. Everyone knew what he'd attempted and how we'd handled it. Companies sought us out because they were impressed by our integrity. Anna's father ended up investing in our expansion. Richard Blackwood had been watching the construction supply market for years, waiting for the right opportunity. A business with that kind of ethical leadership is worth backing, he told me over dinner. Langston Construction Supply had its best year ever under Billy's leadership. We expanded into 3 new markets, signed 12 major new accounts, and increased revenue by 67%, from $1.8 million to just over $3 million annually. Billy moved into Dad's old office and hung a photo of the old man right behind his desk. Anna's father's company became one of our biggest clients, creating a perfect synergy between design and supply that gave us a major competitive advantage. The company that Brandon thought he could gut and rebuild became more successful than it had ever been under Dad's management. The house Dad left me became my weekend retreat. I spent most Saturdays there, and Billy would come by for dinner and to talk business. Anna loved the old place, said it had good bones, and helped me restore it to its original grandeur. And Brandon? Last I heard, he was working at a lumber yard in Ohio, living in a trailer park and driving a 20-year-old pickup truck. His parole officer wouldn't let him leave the state. The divorce from Allison had been brutal. She'd taken what little he had left after the asset seizure, claiming emotional distress and financial fraud, from Porsche Cayenne to pickup truck rust bucket. That's what we call a career pivot. Some guys just finish last, and some guys get exactly what they deserve. Mom still calls regularly, but not to check on me, to guilt trip me about Brandon. When I point out that Brandon committed actual felonies, she sighs like I'm being dramatic. She started telling people at church that I turned my own brother into the police over a family disagreement, making me the villain in her version of events. The last time she called, she had the audacity to suggest I write a letter to the judge asking for leniency because families should stick together. When I told her Brandon would need to apologize to Billy first, she scoffed. Billy's not even family, Jensen. He's just an employee who got lucky. You're really going to choose some outsider over your own blood? I hung up. Haven't answered her calls since. Billy and I run a multi-million-dollar company now. Every time we sign a new contract, every time we hire another employee, every time we see Dad's name on our business cards, we remember what he taught us about doing things the right way. Sometimes the good guys actually do win. Story 2. My fiancée canceled our wedding for the third time. I need time to think, she said. I told her to take all she needed. Then I took back the ring, exposed her affair, and disappeared. Hey everyone! Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Hey Reddit, I was with this girl for 7 years. Got engaged. She called off the wedding twice, coming up with some BS excuses. Before she could cancel the third time, I already had my exit planned. I walked away and watched her life implode from Puerto Rico. Here's how it went down. I, 32 male, met Vicky, 30 female, during the 2016 Super Bowl party at my buddy Dave's place. She showed up with Dave's girlfriend, wearing a Patriots jersey despite not knowing a single player's name. I was the guy who called her out on it. So who's your favorite Patriots player? I asked, leaning against the kitchen counter. All of them? You don't know a single player's name, do you? Does it matter? The jersey looks cute on me. She wasn't wrong about that. Somehow that exchange turned into her number in my phone and a first date that weekend. She was the classic hot yoga instructor, all Zen vibes and Instagram-worthy flexibility. I was pulling 60-hour weeks as a network security consultant for a financial tech startup. She loved that I had a real career and ambition. I loved that she was hot, flexible, and impressed my friends. Let's be honest, at 27, I wasn't exactly searching for deep compatibility metrics. My dating app criteria basically boiled down to attractive and doesn't seem psychotic. Vicky cleared that very low bar with room to spare. We dated for a year before moving in together. I bought her a 1.5 carat diamond ring, 3 months' salary I'd saved by eating ramen lunches, and proposed at Marcello's, this upscale Italian place downtown where a plate of pasta costs more than my first car payment. She cried, said yes, posted it immediately on Instagram. Looking back, she had red flags I willfully ignored. Her longest job lasted 14 months. Her credit score was abysmal. She was 29, and her parents still paid her cell phone bill, car insurance, and slipped her cash whenever she visited. Meanwhile, I was maxing out my 401k and had already put a down payment on an investment property I was renting out. By 28, I had a 6-figure income, a decent stock portfolio, and a side consulting gig that brought in another $20,000 annually. The sex was great. She looked amazing on my arm at company events, and I'd convinced myself that her free spirit balanced out my structured approach to life. Classic sucker mistake. The first wedding was set for June 2019 at a vineyard an hour outside the city. I'd dropped $15,000 in non-refundable deposits. 3 months before the date, Vicky came home from brunch with her sister Kelly. I was on the couch watching the NBA playoffs. Paul, I've been thinking about the wedding timeline, she said, sitting down next to me. Work is insane right now with this new hot yoga Pilates fusion certification, and I'm not sure June is realistic anymore. I muted the game. What exactly does that mean? I think we should postpone, just until fall when things calm down. Work was insane? She taught 4 yoga classes a week at $25 per class. I was pulling in 6 figures, but still driving my 10-year-old car to save for our future. But like an idiot, I nodded and said we could postpone. That night, I calculated exactly how much money I'd just lit on fire. $23,000 in venue deposits, photography deposits, catering minimums, and save the date cards. When I mentioned this figure to Vicky, she shrugged and said, "It's just money, babe. We'll make more." Easy to say when you're not the one making it. What Vicky didn't mention was that the Yoga Pilates Fusion certification required just 2 weekends of actual class time, hardly an overwhelming schedule. Or that her sister Kelly had just booked a 3-week vacation to Thailand that overlapped with our wedding date, and Vicky couldn't bear to get married without her. I found this out later from Dave's girlfriend, who had overheard them planning Kelly's trip at brunch. The second attempt was planned for May 2020. We downsized to a hotel ballroom package that was less expensive, but still required a $12,000 deposit. 4 months before the date, Vicky's sister Kelly broke up with her boyfriend of 8 months, and suddenly Vicky couldn't possibly get married when Kelly was going through such trauma. Vicky dropped this bomb while I was cleaning my golf clubs in the garage. Just walked in, leaned against my workbench, and sighed dramatically. Kelly and Mike broke up. She's completely devastated. I kept cleaning my 7-iron. That sucks. I never liked that guy anyway. Paul, I don't think I can get married while Kelly's heartbroken. She's my maid of honor. It wouldn't be right. I put down the club. Are you serious? We're canceling again because your sister's dating life is a train wreck? It's not about that. It's about supporting family during crisis. The next day, I called Kelly directly, supposedly to express condolences. She sounded completely fine. Yeah, it's a bummer, but honestly, we weren't working. I told Vicky not to change your wedding plans. That's ridiculous. I'm dating again already. That night, I confronted Vicky. Kelly says she's fine with us keeping the wedding date. Actually said she's already dating someone else. Vicky's eyes narrowed dangerously. Well, I know my sister better than you do. She's devastated inside. She's just putting on a brave face. Why did you call her anyway? Don't you trust me? I dropped it. Canceled everything again. My friends were already booked for Vegas. Another expensive mess. After the second cancellation, my best friend Sam pulled me aside during our Thursday poker night. We were on his deck, cigars in hand, while the other guys were inside arguing about the blinds. Dude, you realize she's never gonna marry you, right? This is a pattern. I brushed it off, but his words stuck with me. Here's the thing about being a man engaged to an Instagram-obsessed yoga instructor. Society expects you to shut up and be grateful. After all, you landed a hot chick who can put her ankles behind her head. What right do you have to complain? Every time I'd express frustration to married colleagues, they'd roll their eyes. Marriage is expensive, man. Get used to it. Happy wife, happy life, they'd say, dead behind the eyes. They didn't get it. This wasn't about the money. It was about respect, about being treated like an equal partner instead of an ATM with benefits. I started noticing this underlying pattern. Vicky would set these arbitrary relationship milestones, moving in together, getting engaged, planning a wedding, but whenever we approached actually completing one, she'd manufacture a crisis. She wanted the social status of each milestone without the commitment. The engagement ring was a perfect example. When we were out with her friends or at yoga events, that ring was front and center, prominently displayed in every photo. But at home, it lived in her drawer most of the time, only worn when convenient for her image. After the second cancellation, I started tracking our finances more rigorously. I discovered Vicky had opened 3 store credit cards under our shared address and maxed all of them out. She'd been intercepting the bills so I wouldn't see them. When confronted, she insisted they were pre-wedding necessities and that I was being controlling by questioning her spending. I also found she'd been borrowing from our wedding fund for various emergencies, like a last-minute weekend trip to Miami with her yoga friends that she hadn't bothered to tell me about until she was at the airport. I was done being the sucker bankrolling her Instagram lifestyle while she kept moving the commitment goalposts. Time for a change in strategy. Fast forward to May 2022. Wedding attempt number 3 was scheduled for early June at a beachside resort 2 hours away. Smaller guest list, but still a $30,000 affair when all was said and done. I'd insisted on wedding insurance this time. Fool me twice and all that. Few weeks before Vicky's ultimate cancellation, I started noticing odd patterns. Her advanced yoga teacher training sessions on Thursday evenings and Saturday mornings never seemed to result in any new techniques or knowledge. She'd become protective of her phone, angling the screen away, taking calls in the bathroom. Sex had become less frequent. Then came the text from Ellie, one of Vicky's friends from her hot yoga certification course. We'd met maybe 3 times at group gatherings. Paul, can we meet? It's important. Just us. We met at the Starbucks near my office building. Ellie looked nervous as hell, kept checking the door like Vicky might burst in wielding a yoga mat as a weapon. I don't know how to say this, but Vicky's been seeing someone. A guy named Jordan from Equinox downtown. It's been going on for at least 4 months. My stomach dropped, but some part of me wasn't even surprised. How do you know? She thinks I'm covering for her. When she says she's at advanced teacher training on Thursdays, she's with him. I've seen them together twice at that wine bar on 7th. I wouldn't normally get involved, but you seem like a decent guy. And I found out something else. What? He's married, 2 kids. His wife thinks he's working late when he's with Vicky. I thanked Ellie, told her I'd handle it, went back to my office, closed the door, and stared at my computer screen for an hour. I'm not proud of what I did next, but I'd funded 3 almost weddings and 5 years of her half-assed career attempts. 3 years earlier, I'd helped Vicky set up a Gmail account for her future wellness coaching business that never materialized beyond a logo she paid someone $400 to design. On a hunch, I tried her standard password, her cat's name, Zoe, plus her birth year. Bingo. After some digging, I found it. Hundreds of texts backed up from her phone, conversations with JFit that made it crystal clear what was happening. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. V will think I'm at a client meeting, LOL. Miss your body. Thursday can't come fast enough. There were selfies of them together at a hotel bar. Explicit messages that made me sick to my stomach. Hotel receipts for afternoon yoga workshops. Planning for meetups while I was on business trips to Chicago and Boston. The whole affair playbook, executed with the most basic lack of creativity imaginable. The stupidest part? She'd actually saved their sexting history to her Google Drive, including explicit photos that I definitely didn't need to see. This woman who could barely remember to charge her phone had meticulously created a digital scrapbook of her affair. If you're going to cheat, at least have the technical savvy to cover your tracks. I downloaded everything, maintaining the metadata and timestamps, created a neat little digital folder of evidence, backed it up to my secure cloud storage. Then I started digging on Jordan. LinkedIn showed Jordan Michaels, personal trainer at Equinox Downtown, former supplement sales rep, associate's degree in exercise science from the community college. Facebook revealed Jordan Michaels, married to Emily Michaels, née Taylor, elementary school teacher. 2 kids, ages 6 and 4, living in a nice suburban development 30 minutes from the city. Their whole life documented on social media, family vacations to Disney, backyard barbecues, school plays. I found Emily's email through the school's parent-teacher contact directory. Simple as that. Jordan's social media was a joke. This guy was posting family man content with his wife and kids on weekends, motivational fitness garbage during weekdays, and secretly messaging my fiancé about how he was going to leave his family for her. Honestly, they deserved each other. But his wife and kids didn't deserve the collateral damage. Here's the thing about Vicky that most people missed. She was deeply predictable. She operated on patterns. The same excuses, the same manipulative tactics, the same cycle of enthusiasm and abandonment, with everything from jobs to hobbies to relationships. I knew she was going to cancel wedding number 3. The signs were all there. Suddenly questioning the venue choice, bringing up minor disagreements from years ago, picking fights about the honeymoon destination we'd already booked. The Jordan affair just confirmed what I already suspected. That Friday, I confirmed plans with my buddies Sam and Carlos for a 2-week trip to Puerto Rico. We'd been talking about a guy's trip for ages, and I'd found dirt-cheap flights through Sam's cousin who worked for the airline. Sam had family in San Juan. His grandparents had a beach house they rarely used, and his cousins knew every non-touristy spot worth visiting. I transferred another $10,000 to my escape fund account and made sure my passport was current. The escape fund hadn't started as an escape fund. After the first canceled wedding, I'd opened a separate account at a different bank as a precaution. Just a small emergency fund in case Vicky's spending habits ever put our primary accounts at risk. After the second cancellation, it became a more deliberate backup plan. I'd been making monthly transfers labeled as investment portfolio that Vicky never questioned because financial matters bored her. In 3 years, it had grown to nearly $40,000. Not enough to retire on, but certainly enough to disappear for a while if needed. I'd also started quietly moving my important documents to a small fireproof safe at my office: passport, birth certificate, car title, investment records. Not because I was planning to leave yet, but because I'd noticed Vicky's tendency to misplace things when she was upset with me. That Saturday, Vicky suggested we go to Marcello's, where I'd proposed. The symmetry wasn't lost on me. I already knew exactly what was coming. The restaurant was packed, but we got our table by the window. Vicky ordered her usual fettuccine. She pushed her pasta around the plate, looking up with those practiced puppy dog eyes. Paul, sweetie, about the wedding. I've been thinking a lot. Oh, I need more time. It's not that I don't want to marry you. but I'm not sure I'm in the right headspace right now. Standard Vicky script, word for word what I'd expected. I fought back a laugh. With my yoga business potentially expanding and all the stress of wedding planning, maybe we should postpone until things settle down. I took another bite, smiled calmly. Okay, Vicky, take all the time you need. The relief on her face was almost comical. She immediately launched into her rehearsed speech about working on herself and making sure we're really ready and how this was the mature decision. I nodded along. What she didn't know, I'd already packed a suitcase hidden in my car trunk. The Puerto Rico tickets were purchased. My financial accounts were separated. My workplace knew I'd be working remotely for a while. Vicky spent the entire drive home texting someone, presumably Jordan, with a small smile playing at her lips. She thought she'd managed the situation perfectly, kept her backup plan, me, on the hook, while pursuing her upgrade option, Jordan. 3 years of her life had taught her that I was a pushover who would just accept whatever she decided. Sunday morning, I was up at 5 a.m. Vicky was still asleep, dead to the world after taking an Ambien. I'd already packed my essentials in stages over the previous week: passport, laptop, external hard drives, important documents. The note I left was brief, written on the custom stationery she'd ordered for our wedding thank you cards. Vicky, you need more time? You've got it. Forever. I'm done. Wedding's off for good. So are we. I'll get the rest of my stuff later. Paul. I left it on her pillow, took my keys off the shared hook by the door, and walked out of our apartment. Lease in my name, thankfully ending in 2 months. Before I walked out for good, I remembered one last thing. I opened her drawer and pulled out the 1.5-carat engagement ring, the one that cost me 3 months' salary, the one she'd take selfies with but conveniently leave in her drawer more often than wear it. I wasn't about to leave a $12,000 ring behind for her to pawn for a new yoga certification or whatever bullshit she'd pivot to next. First stop was the bank to wire most of my main account to the escape fund, leaving just enough to cover the remaining rent and utilities. Then to Sam's place, where he helped me load my pre-packed essentials into his garage. Holy shit, you're actually doing it, he said, looking impressed as we Tetrised my boxes. Should have done it years ago, I replied, checking the time. Our flight was at 2 p.m. Next stop, my parents. Dad had been telling me to dump Vicky since cancellation 1. He was a retired financial advisor who'd seen this exact scenario play out with clients before. She's using you as a financial safety net while she explores options, son, he'd said last Christmas. Classic hedging strategy. Mom tried to be supportive but couldn't hide her relief when I told them it was over. Oh, honey, I'm sorry, she said, hugging me tightly. But I'm also not sorry at all. That girl was never right for you. Last move before takeoff, I composed an email to Emily Michaels with all the screenshots between Vicky and Jordan. I hit send, then methodically blocked Vicky on everything: phone, email, all social media platforms. Blocked Kelly, Vicky's parents Joyce and Richard, and their entire social circle. Final step. I texted my landlord that I wouldn't be renewing the lease but would continue paying rent until it ended in August. He was a decent guy who'd always liked me. Then I walked out the door without looking back. San Juan, Puerto Rico hit me like a warm, humid embrace. Our flight landed in the early evening, and by nightfall, Sam, Carlos, and I were drinking rum on the patio of Sam's grandparents' beach house, listening to the waves crash nearby. The house wasn't fancy, but it had a killer location in Ocean Park, just steps from the beach. Sam's grandfather had bequeathed Sam a key and instructions to use it whenever, just don't burn it down. Carlos had already lined up our entire first week, deep sea fishing with one of Sam's cousins who had a boat, ATVing in the mountains, a day trip to Culebra for the famous flamenco beach. Sam was in charge of food and nightlife, cooked Puerto Rican food that put restaurants to shame. For the first time in years, I felt the tension drain from my shoulders. No Vicky drama, no wedding planning spreadsheets, no walking on eggshells around her perpetual career crises. Just sun, sand, and a cold drink with actual friends who had my back. 5 days in, I was sitting on the beach when Sam wandered over, phone in hand. Dude, he said, scrolling through messages. Vicky's having a complete meltdown. I leaned back in my chair. Tell me. Apparently, she woke up late Sunday, found my note, and initially thought I was just throwing a tantrum. She figured I'd gone to a hotel to sulk and would come crawling back when I calmed down. When she couldn't reach me after a day, she started harassing our mutual friends. Then, the nuclear bomb hit. Jordan's wife, Emily, had confronted him with the evidence I'd sent. According to Sam's girlfriend, who heard it from Kelly's roommate, there had been a spectacular showdown at Jordan and Emily's house. Jordan immediately threw Vicky under the bus, claimed she was obsessed with him, that she'd pursued him relentlessly, and that he'd been trying to break it off. Emily had kicked him out anyway. Jordan then blocked Vicky on everything. When Vicky showed up at the Equinox where he worked, he had security escort her out of the building. Vicky's fairy tale came crashing down in 48 hours flat. No fiance, no boyfriend, no backup plan. Sam showed me her increasingly desperate text messages to him. "Where is Paul? This isn't funny anymore. Tell him to answer his phone right now. We need to talk. He took my engagement ring. That's mine. He stole my ring." Sam, Carlos, and I were laughing so hard we nearly fell off our deck chairs. The sheer entitlement was mind-blowing. She genuinely couldn't comprehend that her actions had consequences. Ellie kept me updated through Sam. I didn't want direct contact with anyone from that world. Vicky had been banking on me taking her back, again, while keeping Jordan as her side piece until he left his wife. When both options evaporated simultaneously, she spiraled. She showed up at Jordan's gym screaming about how he'd promised to leave his wife, Sam read from Ellie's message. Security had to escort her out. Then she went to your office and tried to convince your admin you were having a mental breakdown and needed her help. My boss had texted, "Your ex showed up. Told her you're on extended leave. She seems unstable. Everything okay?" I thanked him, confirmed I was fine, and asked security not to let her in if she returned. I blocked Ellie too after thanking her through Sam. Clean break, no loose ends. Here's what Sam didn't tell me until weeks later. Vicky had tried to access my laptop at home, password protected thankfully, attempted to transfer money from our old joint account, which I'd already emptied except for rent money, and even tried to cancel my credit cards by claiming they were stolen. The credit card company called me to confirm, and I promptly removed her as an authorized user on all accounts. She'd also shown up at my parents' house twice, once at midnight. My dad had simply closed the door in her face. The second time, she'd brought her mother Joyce as reinforcement. Mom had invited them in for coffee, listened to their demands to know my whereabouts, and calmly replied, "He's a grown man who doesn't want contact with you. I suggest you respect that." Then showed them out. 2 weeks in Puerto Rico turned into a month. I extended my stay, found a co-working space in San Juan with decent Wi-Fi, and convinced my boss to let me work remotely indefinitely. My productivity was actually up without Vicky's constant drama. I moved from Sam's grandparents' place to a small apartment in Rincon, a laid-back surf town on the West Coast. Learned to surf. Got a decent tan. Started running on the beach every morning. Slept better than I had in years. According to Sam, the Vicky situation had evolved. She'd been crashing at Kelly's one-bedroom apartment since I hadn't renewed our lease. The sisters were at each other's throats within days. Vicky had expected sympathy and support. Kelly expected gratitude and rent money. Kelly caught her trying to use her credit card to buy a plane ticket to Puerto Rico, Sam reported after a call with his girlfriend. They had a screaming match that the neighbors called the cops on. Vicky's mother, Joyce, started a campaign to bring Paul back, calling my parents multiple times. "She's struggling financially," Joyce told my mom. "She can't afford rent on her own. Paul has responsibilities here." My mom, usually the diplomatic one, finally snapped, "Vicky is 29 years old, Joyce. Maybe it's time she supported herself instead of relying on my son or you. The lease is paid through August. After that, her housing is her problem." Joyce apparently hung up on her. The crowning absurdity came when Vicky consulted some strip mall lawyer who sent a laughable letter to my parents' house, the only address she had for me, demanding emotional distress compensation, half the value of my car, and spousal support, despite us never having been married. I forwarded it to my cousin Rachel, a no-nonsense corporate attorney in New York, who sent back a response that basically translated to "F around and find out." Rachel outlined my documentation of the 3 canceled weddings, with dates and lost deposits, Vicky's work history, or lack thereof, and her infidelity evidence. She reminded Vicky's lawyer that unmarried partners have no financial obligations to each other beyond shared property, of which we had none in both our names, and that further harassment would result in a restraining order. We never heard from the lawyer again. Vicky's final move was a social media smear campaign, posting vague accusations about betrayal and emotional abandonment, and how men can't handle strong women. A few acquaintances who only heard her side messaged me with concern. "Dude, you okay? Heard what happened with Vicky." I sent them a detailed timeline of the 3 canceled weddings and screenshots of the affair evidence. Radio silence after that. Through Sam's girlfriend, I heard that Vicky's yoga studio had let her go after she had a meltdown during a class, bursting into tears while attempting to demonstrate downward dog. She'd apparently been showing up late to classes, looking disheveled, and spending more time talking about her traumatic breakup than actually teaching yoga. Her Instagram following had dropped by 30% after several rambling live sessions, where she'd alternated between trashing me and desperately trying to justify her actions. The kicker: Jordan's wife Emily had publicly outed both of them in a community Facebook group that many of Vicky's potential yoga clients belonged to. Emily had been surgical, just the facts with date-stamped evidence, but the fallout had been immediate. Vicky could no longer market herself as a spiritual wellness guide when everyone in the yoga community knew she'd been sleeping with a married father of two. Jordan wasn't doing much better. Equinox had asked him to resign after multiple clients complained about his unprofessional behavior. Emily had filed for divorce with an excellent attorney funded by her parents, and his side business selling fitness supplements had tanked after his adultery became public knowledge. After 2 months in Puerto Rico, Sam flew down again for a long weekend. Through his cousins, we got connected with a local group, 3 guys who ran a popular surf shop and dive center, and 2 women who worked as tour guides for the luxury resorts. They showed us the real Puerto Rico that tourists never see: hidden waterfalls, unmarked beaches, family-run restaurants serving the best food I'd ever tasted. Daniela was one of the tour guides. Smart as hell with a biology degree, perfect English with that slight accent that makes every word sound better, and the kind of natural beauty that doesn't need filters or makeup. We hit it off immediately. She taught me how to surf properly. I helped her upgrade her business website. The biggest difference between Daniela and Vicky became clear the first time we went out to dinner. When the check came, Daniela reached for her wallet without hesitation. I insisted on paying, but the automatic assumption that I would cover everything was refreshingly absent. "I can pay for my own dinner," she said with a smile. "I asked you out, remember?" She had a point. She had called it a date first. About 3 months into my Puerto Rico escape, Sam posted a group photo on Instagram. Nothing special, just all of us at a beachside bar after a day of surfing. Daniela was next to me, leaning in close, both of us sun-kissed and laughing. I hadn't even thought about it. My social media had been dormant since leaving Vicky. Within an hour, my phone started blowing up with calls from unknown numbers. I ignored them until one left a voicemail. "Paul, it's me. Who the F is that slut in Sam's picture? We need to talk right now. This isn't funny anymore. Call me back." Vicky had obviously been stalking Sam's social media and recognized me in the background. She'd resorted to borrowing phones from friends, co-workers, even strangers at the yoga studio to try to get through my blocks. I finally answered one, out of sheer irritation. "What do you want, Vicky? Who's that slut in the picture? Are you cheating on me?" The delusion was next level. "Vicky, I left you 3 months ago. I took back the engagement ring you didn't deserve. I'm not coming back. There's no us anymore. I'm hanging up now." "No, Paul, you can't do this to us. I made one mistake. Those aren't mistakes. They're choices. Choices have consequences. Enjoy yours." I hung up and blocked that number too. When she tried calling from other numbers, I simply didn't pick up. Eventually, she gave up, or ran out of people willing to lend her their phones. According to Sam, Vicky had gone nuclear after seeing that photo. She'd created a fake Instagram account to message Daniela directly, sending a rambling manifesto about how I was emotionally damaged and would abandon her too. Daniela had read the first few lines, recognized the crazy, and blocked the account immediately. "Your ex seems nice," she said dryly when she told me about it. "She's consistent. I'll give her that." The most pathetic part? Vicky had started posting throwback photos of us from years ago, captioning them with revisionist history about our beautiful relationship and how she was waiting for me to come to my senses. She conveniently edited out the part where she'd canceled 3 weddings and been sleeping with a married personal trainer. One aspect of leaving Vicky that I hadn't fully anticipated was the immediate financial upside. Without her constant drain on my resources, my savings rate tripled overnight. No more $200 yoga workshops that never led to actual income. No more investment pieces that were really just designer clothes she'd wear once for Instagram. No more subsidizing her half of rent when she was between opportunities, which was most months. The funny part? Now that I was single, I was actually spending less but enjoying life more. My beachfront apartment in Rincon cost half what we'd been paying in the city. Local food was cheaper and better than the trendy restaurants Vicky insisted on visiting weekly. And Daniela, despite my offers to treat her, insisted on paying her own way most of the time. 6 months later, I'm back in the States now, but not in the same city. Found a great job opportunity in Denver with a 30% salary bump, better benefits, and hybrid work policy. I'm closer to the mountains, have a downtown loft with no memories attached, and I'm dating Daniela seriously now. She'd been looking to expand her ecotourism business to the States anyway, and Colorado's outdoor adventure scene was the perfect fit. Daniela is everything Vicky wasn't: independent, supportive, honest, and financially responsible. She doesn't expect me to bankroll her life or solve her problems. She doesn't create unnecessary drama just to test my loyalty. The relationship feels like a partnership, not a hostage situation where my wallet is being held for ransom. Sam visited last month. We hiked a 14er, drank local craft beers, and he finally told me something he'd been holding back. Jordan's wife filed for divorce. Turns out Vicky wasn't his first affair. And Vicky? Working at Lululemon. Still living with Kelly. Still telling anyone who'll listen that you're the villain who abandoned her. I just laughed. My only regret is that I wasted 5 years on someone who never intended to commit. But the view from this side of the decision? Crystal clear. Sam also filled me in on the financial fallout for Jordan. Emily's divorce attorney had been ruthless, arguing successfully that Jordan's infidelity and pattern of unprofessional behavior with clients constituted grounds for an uneven asset division. He'd lost the house, half his retirement accounts, and was paying significant child support. Dude's life imploded. Last I heard, he and Vicky tried getting together for real, but it lasted about 3 weeks before they were at each other's throats. Turns out neither of them enjoyed actually dealing with each other's problems. Shocker. Last weekend, Vicky made her final showdown. Daniela and I flew back to my hometown to visit my parents. I hadn't been back to my hometown since moving to Denver, and I wanted to introduce Daniela to my family. Mom and Dad instantly loved her. Dad especially appreciated her business acumen and self-sufficiency. We were having coffee in my parents' living room on Sunday morning when the doorbell rang repeatedly. I opened the door to find Vicky on the porch, looking like she'd been rode hard and put away wet. Her roots were showing. Her eyes had that manic gleam, and she'd clearly lost weight in an unhealthy way. "Paul," she said, trying for that breathy voice that used to work on me. "I heard you were in town. We need to talk." I stayed in the doorway, blocking her entry. "There's nothing to talk about, Vicky. Please, I've changed. I've been in therapy. I know what I did wrong now." She tried to look past me into the house. "Can I just come in for 5 minutes? Whatever you have to say, you can say right here." She switched to the wounded victim act, complete with glistening eyes. "After everything we've been through? You won't even give me 5 minutes? We've been through 3 canceled weddings in your affair. That about covers it. Paul, please, I made mistakes, but..." Daniela appeared behind me, hand casually resting on my back. "Babe, is everything okay?" Vicky's face contorted as she connected the dots. "You're the slut from the beach picture." I felt Daniela tense beside me, but she just smiled. "I'm Daniela, and you must be the ex who can't count to 3 wedding dates." Vicky looked like she'd been slapped. Then the dam broke. "Are you kidding me? You bring your Puerto Rican whore to your parents' house? After everything I did for you? I waited for you. I loved you. And you're with this tourism trash?" I stepped partially outside, keeping my voice low but firm. "That's enough, Vicky. You need to leave. Now. I'm not going anywhere until you explain yourself. You owe me an explanation. I don't owe you anything. You cheated with a married guy. You stole money from your own sister to try to follow me to Puerto Rico. You had your mommy call my parents because you couldn't pay rent. At what point in that pathetic story did I become the one who owes you something?" Vicky's face turned red. "You're just mad because I needed time. Not everyone has their life perfectly planned out like you. Some of us are still finding ourselves." I couldn't help but laugh. "You're 30 years old. You think you're so much better than me with your fancy job and your exotic slut?" Daniela stepped forward. "I run my own business, have a biology degree, and speak 3 languages. What exactly have you accomplished besides getting kicked out of Equinox?" Vicky lunged at Daniela, but I stepped between them. "That's it. You have 10 seconds to get off this property before I call the cops." Vicky's eyes darted between us, searching for any leverage, any weakness. Finding none, she backed up. "This isn't over. She'll get bored with you just like I did. And when she does, don't come crawling back to me." Vicky turned and stomped back to her car, a new-looking Audi that her parents had undoubtedly financed. As she peeled away from the curb, Daniela slipped her hand into mine. "So that's the famous Vicky. That's her. She seems stable." We both burst out laughing as we walked back inside to join my parents, who had tactfully stayed in the living room during the confrontation. My dad just raised his coffee mug in a silent toast. "Dodged a bullet there, son." I actually did the math recently. Over 7 years, I spent nearly $127,000 on canceled wedding deposits, Vicky's business ventures that went nowhere, covering her share of rent and bills when she was between gigs, and other expenses. That's not counting regular relationship costs like dinners out and gifts. Some people need to learn that actions have consequences, And more time sometimes means no more chances. The best revenge isn't just living well. It's watching reality catch up to someone who thought they were above it. Story 3. My fiance texted lol. You thought I'd cancel the Miami trip for your surgery? When I asked for support during my operation. I texted back, my bad. What the nurse told her. When she called the hospital later changed everything. Hey Reddit, strap in for this shit show I'm about to share. My fiance decided Miami was more important than my surgery, so I let her enjoy her trip. Things went absolutely insane after that. You're gonna love it. Names changed for obvious reasons, but everything else is 100% real. Get your snacks. Here we go. I, 27 male, have been with Fiona for 3 years, engaged for 6 months. We're living in my apartment that I've been paying for since before we met. She moved in after 8 months and somehow never contributed more than grocery money. Had the whole thing planned out. Beach wedding next summer, honeymoon in Greece, white picket fence bullshit. Until the universe said, nope, you guessed wrong. Thank God for that tumor. One morning, doing a routine checkup. You know the drill. Expected to get lectured about my diet and be out in 20 minutes. Instead, Dr. Williams is poking around my side with that look. This is about to ruin your whole month look. We need to run additional tests, he says, which in doctor speak means, congratulations, something's trying to kill you. One anxiety-filled week later, CT scans, blood work, sitting in waiting rooms that smell like despair and hand sanitizer, I get the verdict. Benign tumor on my kidney, but positioned like it's got personal beef with me, wrapped around some crucial shit that means they've got to slice me open and dig it out properly. Surgery's the only option, Dr. Williams explains. You'll be in the hospital 2 to 3 days minimum. Recovery's about 4 weeks, and you'll absolutely need someone with you 24/7 for at least the first week. No driving, no lifting, no being alone. Fair enough. I called my fiance from the hospital parking lot. Tell her about the tumor, the surgery scheduled for April 15th, how I need someone there for recovery. I can hear her typing the whole time, probably work emails or Instagram captions. Hard to tell which is more important to her. Multitasking queen right here. When I finish explaining, there's this long pause before she drops the bomb. Wait, April 15th? That's Miami week. She actually asks if I can reschedule the surgery for after her trip, like I'm rearranging a dentist appointment instead of tumor removal. Yeah, let me just call Dr. Williams and ask if the tumor can wait 2 weeks for your tan. Calls the whole thing typical and convenient timing for ruining her vacation. I try explaining that surgeons have waiting lists, that this was the earliest opening, that I genuinely need her support. She sighs like I'm asking her to donate a kidney. Ugh, fine, just let me ask the girls. They're counting on me. I can't believe this is happening. Then she hangs up. I sat in that parking lot for 30 minutes, thinking about how my fiance just prioritized Miami Beach over my life. That night, Fiona comes home around 9 p.m. Doesn't even look at me. Just drops her purse and starts making herself a drink like she's had the hardest day in human history. So I talked to the girls, she starts, and I already know I'm about to hear some grade A bullshit. They think it's really manipulative that you're trying to make me cancel. Manipulative. Let that marinate for a second. I have a tumor, Fiona, which you've apparently had for months, but now it's suddenly urgent? Right before my trip that you knew was important to me? The doctor literally just... Doctors always make everything sound urgent. It's how they justify their fees. Sarah's dad is a surgeon. She knows how this works. Sarah. Her vapid friend whose entire personality is having rich parents and posting gym selfies with captions like, blessed. That Sarah is now my medical consultant, apparently. Fiona. This is surgery, not a checkup. It's outpatient, though, right? Number 2 to 3 days in the hospital, then weeks of recovery. She takes a long sip of her drink, studying me like I'm some complicated math problem. Look, I get that you're scared, but I can't just drop everything because you're having a medical procedure. I have a life too, Zach. What about our vows? In sickness and health. We haven't taken those vows yet. And honestly, this whole guilt trip is making me question if we're ready for marriage. There it is. Question the engagement because I had the audacity to get a tumor. I need someone here to take care of me. You know my family isn't an option since I don't talk to them. Then hire someone. There are services for this. Professional nurses who actually know what they're doing. Are you serious? You want me to hire a stranger because you can't miss a trip? We're supposed to be partners. Zach, I need you to stop being so damn selfish and support the fact that I have my own life and my own plans that don't revolve around him. She storms off to the bedroom. I sleep on the couch, which was more comfortable than lying next to that ice queen anyway. Next morning, she's already dressed and grabbing her keys. I'm going to Miami, she announces. The girls need me, the trip is paid for, and I'm not letting your medical drama ruin something I've been planning for months. That's what 3 years together gets you. Medical drama. Okay, I say quietly. Okay, that's it? What do you want me to say exactly? I want you to understand that I can't put my entire life on hold every time something... Got it. Have fun in Miami. I interrupted. She pauses at the door, probably expecting me to beg or grovel or promise to reschedule surgery around her party schedule. Don't make me the villain here, Zach. I'm being practical. Sure you are. No worries. 2 weeks later, I texted her one final time. Call it a last test of whatever humanity she had left. I'm really worried about this. I need you there with me. 3 hours later. LOL, seriously? You actually thought I'd cancel Miami for your surgery? It's not even cancer. Stop being such a baby about it. I screenshot that message. My mistake, I texted back. And it was. My mistake thinking she was worth marrying. After Fiona's charming "stop being such a baby" text, I realized I needed to get my shit together fast. Surgery in 5 days, no support system, and apparently I'm on my own. First stop, work. Had to explain to my boss that I'd need time off for surgery and recovery. Mark's a good guy, been through his own medical stuff, so he gets it immediately. He sets me up with HR to get my medical leave paperwork sorted. The HR lady, Janet, has this motherly energy and immediately goes into protective mode when she hears the situation. You'll need someone to drive you home from the hospital, and someone to check on you for at least 48 hours. Family nearby? Not really, it's complicated. She writes down her personal number. Okay, if you get stuck, call me. This isn't something you handle alone. Now I know some of you must be wondering why I haven't called my family. We don't have a relationship. I cut them off long ago, but that's another story. So anyways, that night, I started researching what recovery actually looks like. Forums, medical sites, first-hand accounts. Turns out I really will need 24/7 help for at least a week. Can't lift anything over 10 pounds. Can't drive while on pain meds. Need help getting in and out of bed for the first few days. Fiona was posting Instagram stories about Miami outfits while I'm researching post-surgical care instructions. The contrast was so stark it was almost funny. That's when I called Liam. Best friend since college. The kind of guy who'd help you bury a body at 3 a.m. without asking questions. Bro, did you just tell me your fiancé is going to Miami while you have surgery? That's the situation, yeah. What the hell is wrong with her? Is she mentally deficient? Did she hit her head as a child? Multiple times? Apparently I'm being manipulative and dramatic. You have a tumor, you ass. Holy shit, that's not dramatic. Wait, I'm driving up there. Liam, you don't need to... Shut your mouth. I'm taking time off work. Someone should give a damn if you die on that table. It's outpatient. I said shut your mouth. I'm coming. This is why Liam's my boy. He drives up from Baltimore the day before surgery, shows up with a duffel bag, groceries, and a bottle of the good stuff for after you're off the pain meds. So where's Princess Miami? Flight leaves at 6 a.m. She'll probably be wheels up before I'm even in pre-op. And she's really okay with this? Yeah, she's fine with everything. Liam shakes his head. 3 years, man. She's supposed to... You know what? Fuck her. Let's focus on you now. We spent the evening watching movies and ordering pizza. Just two friends hanging out before a medical procedure. The simplicity of having someone who actually gives a shit hits me hard. This is what support looks like. Around 10 p.m., Fiona texts, "Hope everything goes well tomorrow. Try not to be mad at me forever." Want me to respond? Liam asks. Nah, let her. Morning of April 15th, Fiona leaves at 5 a.m., gives me the weakest hug in history and says, "Try not to die or whatever. I'll bring you back something from Miami." Try not to die or whatever. That's the woman I was planning to spend my life with. Liam shows up an hour later with a duffel bag and a shit-eating grin. Ready to get this tumor evicted, landlord? Yes, sir. We get to the hospital and the prep nurse, name tag says Pamela, probably late 50s, has that "I've seen every type of family drama" energy, is doing my intake. Emergency contact is still Fiona? Nah, changed it to Liam Crawford here. Pamela makes a note. Good to have support. Your fiancé couldn't make it? Liam snorts. She's in Miami getting her drink on. Priorities, you know. Pamela's pen stops moving. What, Miami? During your surgery? Yep. And you're still engaged to this person? Not for long, I say. Pamela grins. Well, you're in excellent hands here. We'll take very good care of you. Surgery goes perfectly. Wake up drowsy, but tumor-free. Liam's in the chair next to me, scrolling through Fiona's Instagram stories. Yo, good morning, Zach. Feeling tumorless? Dude, Nah, you'll live. He slapped me on the shoulder. A few minutes later, he starts showing me what Miss Miami has been posting. She posted like 15 times. Look at this shit. Miami vibes with my girls. With a bunch of bikini shots. Posted 2 hours ago. The bitch even posted a group shot captioned, "Some things are more important than drama." DRAMA. Like you planned this whole tumor in your ass just to... In my liver, actually. Whatever, bro. Fuck her. Around 6 p.m., my phone starts buzzing like crazy. Text after text. It was from her. Why aren't you answering? I know you're mad, but don't be childish. The least you could do is let me know you're alive. This silent treatment is really immature. Liam reads them, doing this perfect Valley Girl impression. Want me to respond? She's not gonna like what I'm about to say. Nah, let her sweat. Oh, this is gonna be fun. That's when the real show started. 8 p.m., the phone at the nurse's station rings. Pamela comes back 10 minutes later, grinning like the Cheshire Cat. Your soon-to-be ex-fiancé is calling. She wants to speak with you immediately. Tell her I'm sleeping. Are you sleeping? Like a baby. Pamela's grin gets wider. Understood. She leaves and comes back 15 minutes later. She called 4 more times. Apparently you're playing games and she has a right to know what's happening. Tell her whatever you think is medically appropriate. Oh, sure I will. Here's where Pamela earned her place in the Hall of Fame. Liam was eavesdropping, and apparently Pamela told Fiona I was unconscious and unresponsive following surgical complications, and that only emergency contacts or immediate family members could receive detailed medical information per hospital protocol. Technically accurate. I was napping, unconscious. Not talking, unresponsive. Surgery is always complicated, and Liam was my emergency contact, immediate family by choice. The text went absolutely nuclear. What complications? Why are you unconscious? Why is Liam there instead of me? I'm your fiancé. Pamela said only emergency contacts. WTF does that mean? Are you dying? I'm booking a flight right now. Liam reading these out loud with a hilarious voice. Oh, this one's good. If you die, I will never forgive you. What the hell does that even mean? Screenshotted. This is gonna be fun. But the best part? She posted on Instagram. Please pray for my fiancé. Emergency situation. Might have to come home early. The comments were immediate. OMG, what happened? Wait, weren't you just posting bikini pics? Is everything okay? Then her friend Jessica, and Jessica's real one, comments, didn't you say yesterday he was being dramatic about routine surgery? She deleted Jessica's comment within minutes. But the internet is forever. Liam got a screenshot. Your fiancé's about to learn a valuable lesson about social media, he says. Talk shit. Get hit. Pamela comes back around 10 p.m. with my evening meds and a clipboard full of notes. Your fiancé called 6 more times. I've documented each conversation for medical records. What's she saying now? She demanded to speak with the surgeon, the hospital administrator, and threatened to call the state medical board about patient privacy violations. Because we won't give her detailed medical information about someone who's not her husband, and explicitly removed her as emergency contact. Liam laughs. She's really doubling down on the crazy. Then she was crying about how this was all a misunderstanding and she just wanted to know you were okay. She was screaming about manipulation and conspiracy theories. She's hitting all the classics, I say. The overnight charge nurse is excited to take over. Apparently word spread, and everyone wants to see how this plays out. I turned off my phone and got the best sleep I'd had in weeks. The next morning, I woke up to 89 texts and 43 missed calls. Liam's been documenting everything. She FaceTimed me at 2 a.m. from some club bathroom, completely hammered, crying about how she made a mistake and needs to know you're okay. I told her you were in intensive care. Am I in intensive care? You're intensively eating Jell-O and watching Rick and Morty. Close enough. Pamela comes in for rounds, carrying what looks like a scorecard. Your fiancé called 18 times last night. 18. The night shift made it a competition. Every call earned points based on how dramatic she got. What's the high score? Call number 14. She threatened to call the governor if we didn't give her information. In Florida, about a Pennsylvania hospital. Panic makes people stupid, Pamela says. Speaking of which, she's apparently calling every hospital in the city trying to find you. She can do that? She can try. But you're registered as private, and unless she has your exact room number and patient code, we won't even confirm you exist. The morning nurse, Kevin, stops by around 11 a.m. with more intel. Got a call from Presbyterian Hospital downtown. They said some woman called asking if they had a Zach recovering from kidney surgery. When they said no, she asked them to check again because someone was lying to her. She's calling random hospitals? Gets better. She called Children's Hospital asking if they treat adults. When they said no, she asked if they were covering up for other hospitals. Because that's how conspiracies work. Liam's dying laughing. Dude, she's lost her damn mind. St. Mary's, Jefferson, Temple University Hospital. She's working through the phone book. They're all calling us because she keeps mentioning our hospital name and demanding they tell her the truth. This is insane. This is entertainment, Pamela corrects. We don't get drama this good very often. By afternoon, Fiona's social media had gone full meltdown mode. Posted on Facebook, emergency, flying home immediately. Zach is in critical condition after surgical complications. Please keep us in your prayers. My buddy Marcus texts me. Dude, Fiona's post says you're dying. Are you dying? I text back, texting from heaven right now. They got pudding. Thank God. He replied, Bro LMAO, she said critical condition. Critically bored maybe. Let her dig this hole. Marcus sends back, already screenshotted everything. This is gonna be a meme. That afternoon, I got a surprise visitor. Natalie Smith knocks on my door around 3 p.m., carrying a container that smells like heaven. Now, some background on Natalie. She's my neighbor, lives 2 doors down. Professional baker, runs this little specialty cake business from home. Also happens to be gorgeous, like dangerously gorgeous. We've always been friendly, but she's never crossed any lines out of respect for my relationship. Always just been the sweet neighbor who sometimes brings over extra cookies. Hey, she says, looking genuinely concerned. Liam told me about your surgery when he was getting your mail. Brought you some homemade chicken soup. Liam told you? Wait, you made me soup? Yes! And some of those oatmeal cookies you always compliment. Figured hospital food probably sucks. Liam appears behind me grinning. Natalie, perfect timing. Our patient here was just complaining about the culinary experience. I was not complaining. He totally was. Come in. Come in. Tell me, how long have you been waiting for Fiona to fuck up this badly? And don't say you haven't. We all saw this train wreck coming. Liam, Natalie laughs. I plead the fifth. But seriously, I'm glad you're okay, Zach. Surgery's scary stuff. She stays for like 20 minutes, and it's the first normal conversation I've had in days. Genuine concern from someone who gives a shit whether I live or die. Where's Fiona, though? She asks innocently. Miami, I say. During your surgery? Yup. Natalie blinks slowly. I'm sorry, what? It's a vacation. I don't even have words for that. None of us do, Liam adds. Hence why I drove up from Baltimore to babysit this idiot. I glared at him. But Natalie replied, That's really sweet of you, Liam. Someone had to give a shit. Clearly wasn't going to be Fiona. After she leaves, Liam's looking at me with this knowing grin. What? Nothing. Just interesting timing, that's all. It's soup, dickhead. It's homemade soup from the hot baker who's been waiting 3 years for you to notice she exists. Shut up! She's being neighborly. She's being strategic, and I respect the hell out of it. Oh, and I enjoy seeing you worked up like that. That's why I filled her in anyway. Fuck you. You're welcome. Discharge day comes, and I'm packing when Fiona finally tracks me down. She bursts through the door looking like she's been through a war. Hair's a mess, makeup smeared, still wearing a wrinkled Miami outfit. The dramatic entrance would have been more effective if she hadn't spent the last 48 hours calling every hospital in the tri-state area like some discount Nancy Drew. Oh, thank God you're alive. Why didn't anyone tell me you were okay? Because you were in Miami. I came back early. I was worried sick. I thought you were dying. The nurse said you were unresponsive. I was napping. She stops. Napping. And eating Jell-O sometimes. What the hell? But she said complications. Yeah, it's pretty complicated. The reality starts hitting her. She built this entire crisis narrative in her head based on perfectly normal post-surgical recovery, filtered through her own guilt and panic. You let me think you were dying. Are you freaking kidding me? Number, I let you assume the worst because you weren't here to know any better. That's manipulation. No, you don't get to control the narrative from 1,200 miles away while sipping mojitos. She sinks into the chair, suddenly looking smaller. The Miami tan looks ridiculous against her tear-streaked face, like she's some kind of emotional tourist who wandered into the wrong tragedy. I gave up 2 days of my vacation. I was worried about you. Were you worried about me? Or worried about how it looked that you weren't here? Direct hit. She can't answer that because we both know the truth. I cut my trip short. After you posted bikini pics while I was unconscious on an operating table. That's not fair. I pull the engagement ring out of my pocket and set it on the bedside table. The wedding's off. Complete meltdown mode. Crying, pleading, 3 years together. How can I throw it all away over a misunderstanding? This is insane. That's when I dropped the second bomb. Also, you have 2 weeks to find somewhere else to live. What the hell do you mean somewhere else? You can't kick me out. I have rights. Check the paperwork. Your name's nowhere on it. Funny how that works. I'll call a lawyer. Good luck with that. Pamela appears in the doorway with discharge papers and immediately clocks the situation. Everything all right in here? Just fine, I say. Pamela, meet Fiona. Fiona, meet Pamela, the nurse who's been taking your calls and documenting your meltdowns for posterity. Pamela's smile could cut glass. Oh, the fiancé. How was Miami? Must have been quite the vacation to miss all this excitement. Fiona's standing there like a fish gasping for air. I'm taking him home, she announces. Actually, I'm all set. I gesture to Liam. My ride's been here the whole time. Liam? We came here together. Yeah, sure. This is ridiculous. I'm your fiancé. Ex-fiancé, I correct. She storms out screaming about lawyers and rights. 20 minutes later, she's posting on Facebook about how some people can't handle strong women who have their own lives. The comments destroy her immediately. Jessica. Wait, didn't you go to Miami during his surgery? Marcus. Strong and independent equals abandoning your fiancé during medical procedures? Her cousin Lisa. Girl, what are you even talking about? We saw your vacation pics. She starts deleting comments, but it's too late. The internet remembers everything. The first week home, things were almost peaceful. I'm healing, taking my pain meds, sleeping a lot. Natalie keeps showing up with food. Chicken noodle soup the first day, homemade bread the second, some kind of pasta casserole that made me question every meal Fiona ever made. We start having longer conversations while Liam hovers like a protective older brother, making sarcastic comments about my improved meal service. The woman is incredible. Smart, funny, actually asks how I'm feeling instead of treating my recovery like an inconvenience. We're keeping it completely appropriate, but there's definitely something there. Something real. Fiona notices immediately. Starts interrogating me every time Natalie leaves. Since when are you two close? What do you mean? Why the hell is she coming here? It's none of your business, Fiona. You're leaving soon. TF, do you mean none of my business? I'm your fiancé. Ex-fiancé. And just like that, she would have a meltdown every time Natalie visited. Meanwhile, her work situation starts cracking around the same time. Word spreads fast in professional circles, especially when someone has a very public social media meltdown. Co-workers start looking at her differently. The marketing industry is small, and everyone knows everyone. I found out later that her boss called a meeting after clients started asking about the employee who abandoned her fiancé during surgery. Professional reputation matters when you're handling other people's image problems. Day 10 arrives and she's acting like nothing happened, bringing me coffee in bed, trying to cuddle while I'm watching TV, playing the devoted fiancé she never was when it actually mattered. I know you're still mad about Miami, but we can work through this. There's nothing to work through. When will you get that we're done? Am I speaking Italian here? I made a mistake. People make mistakes. Cut it off. You're supposed to be packing. That's not fair. What's not fair is me wasting time on someone like you. Meanwhile, she's posting on social media about fighting for love and not giving up on what matters. The comments are universally brutal. Maybe fight for love before going to Miami during surgery? Too little, too late, Fiona. This is embarrassing. OMG, delete the post. Her friend group starts distancing themselves. The same girls who encouraged the Miami trip are suddenly unavailable when she needs places to crash. Ashley stops responding to texts. Sarah's making excuses about having family in town. The Fairweather Friend Network collapses when drama gets real. Day 12, I find her going through my phone while I'm in the shower. Who the fuck is Kevin? Why the hell are you touching my phone? Why is he texting you? Gimme this shit. I snatched it from her. Is he making fun of me? Fiona, enough! Don't make me throw you out of the window with all your stuff. Silence. Then, why does Pamela have your number? Get out of my sight. She stomped out loudly and slammed the door. She was spiraling, and I was losing my patience. Then came day 15. I'm getting ready to call my lawyer when there's a knock on the door. Fiona's parents, Maria and Frank, standing in my hallway looking like they're attending a funeral. We need to talk, Frank says. We sit down, and Maria immediately starts crying. We're so sorry, Zach. What she did, we raised her better than that. We didn't know the real story until Jessica told us, Frank adds. Fiona said you had manipulated the hospital situation to make her look bad. I was unconscious, Frank. Hard to manipulate anything while under anesthesia. We know that now. We saw the Instagram posts, the timeline. Maria wipes her eyes. She was posting vacation pictures while you were in surgery. She embarrassed herself and embarrassed the family. 27 years of raising her, and this is what we get, Frank says. We failed somewhere along the line. We're really sorry, son. And I'm glad the surgery went well. They offered to help get her out, to talk sense into her, but I can see they're done too. 27 years of enabling their daughter's selfishness, and they've finally hit their limit. She's not welcome at home until she gets help, Maria says quietly. Real help. Therapy, consequences, accountability. We told her we weren't going to support this behavior anymore, Frank adds. She threatened to cut us off. Her exact words were, "Fine, I don't need parents who don't support me," Maria says. The next day, Fiona's screaming at them in my hallway, full meltdown, accusing them of taking my side, threatening to never speak to them again. I record it through my peephole for evidence. The sound quality is terrible, but you can clearly hear her calling her parents traitors and manipulated idiots for not supporting her truth. Her own parents, who've bankrolled her lifestyle for years, getting screamed at in a public hallway because they won't enable her delusions. Her friend Ashley comes to pick her up. Ashley's got that, "I'm only doing this because I have to" energy. Loads Fiona's stuff into her car, while Fiona sobs dramatically about being abandoned by everyone. "You'll regret this," she tells me, as Ashley drags her toward the stairs. "You can't destroy someone's life and get away with it." Ashley gives me this apologetic look as they leave. We both know this is temporary. Within hours of leaving, Fiona's on every social media platform posting her side of the story. Long, rambling posts about manipulation and fake medical emergencies, and how she's the real victim. The problem is, she's still friends with people from my work, my gym, my family, people who know the truth, people who saw her Miami posts in real time. Everyone in the comments was calling out her bullshit and roasting her. She started deleting posts, but the internet is forever. People are sharing her Miami vacation pics side by side with her emergency rush home posts. The hypocrisy was so clear a blind person could see it. The professional consequences accelerate. Her company's HR department starts getting calls from clients who recognize her. Her job is all about image management, and her image is radioactive. My coworker Janet shared one of Fiona's rants in the office group chat with the caption, "This is why you don't air your dirty laundry on social media." The whole office saw it. My boss Mark just shakes his head and texts me, "Dodged a bullet, man." Actually, dodged a whole firing squad. 2 weeks later, Ashley kicked her out. Apparently, Fiona was throwing tantrums about rent money, leaving messes everywhere, and bringing guys home at all hours. Ashley posts about it on her Instagram stories. Nothing specific, just, "Some people never learn boundaries," with a house key emoji. Subtle but clear. She moved in with another friend, Sarah. That lasted exactly 12 days before Sarah's posting about toxic energy and cleaning house. She was kicked again. She's bouncing between friends' couches, burning bridges everywhere she goes. Her job performance tanks because she's spending work hours posting rants about me instead of actually working. Management notices. People notice. Liam's keeping tabs through mutual connections. Turns out Fiona's becoming that friend everyone avoids. The one who makes everything about her drama. The one who can't have a conversation without bringing up her victim narrative. The final straw comes when she posts a 40-minute video on her Instagram explaining the real story. Crying, holding up printed screenshots, claiming I gaslit her into going to Miami so I could set her up for failure. The video was so cringy to watch. She's clearly been drinking, rambling about conspiracy theories, holding up her phone screen to show text conversations that actually prove my point. It's like watching someone dig their own grave with a selfie stick. Her own extended family starts unfollowing her. Even Sarah's dad, the surgeon who supposedly knows about medical manipulation, comments, "Young lady, I've been a surgeon for 30 years. No one fakes kidney tumors for attention." She deleted the video within hours, but not before dozens of people downloaded it. Liam's got a copy, obviously. That's when the real consequences start rolling in. Month 2 of my recovery, life is actually good. Natalie and I are officially hanging out, still taking it slow, but she's incredible. She brings dinner 3 times a week, helps me with physical therapy exercises, never once makes my healing process about her. It's like night and day compared to the 3 years of walking on eggshells with Fiona. Liam's still crashing in my guest room, partly to help with recovery, but mostly because he's enjoying the front row seat to Fiona's implosion. He gives me daily updates like it's his job. "So, Sarah kicked her. Where's Fiona staying now?" "Motel 6 on Route 22. Her work situation gets worse. She's working at some marketing firm downtown, and word travels fast in those circles. People recognized her. She gets written up for excessive personal social media use during work hours. Apparently, she's posting Instagram stories from the office bathroom, still crying about being manipulated and abandoned. Her supervisor actually reaches out to me through LinkedIn. Hey man, sorry about your situation with Fiona. She's been struggling at work since the Miami thing. Wanted you to know it's affecting her professional life too. Then, the really crazy shit starts. First, I noticed her car parked across from my building. Different times, always just sitting there. She's watching my apartment like some discount private investigator. She shows up around 7 p.m. on weekdays, presumably after work, and sits there for hours. Sometimes I catch her smoking in the car. Other times, she's just staring at my windows like she's waiting for something to happen. It's pathetic and creepy in equal measure. Then the notes start appearing on my car. Weird, rambling shit written on napkins and receipt paper. I know what you're doing with that neighbor slut. You can't hide the truth forever. We had something real and you destroyed it for lies. Serial killer vibes, honestly. Liam finds one and immediately takes photos for evidence. She's officially lost it, he says, reading one that's written in different colored pens like some kind of ransom note. This is restraining order territory. But it gets worse. Natalie starts getting messages. Instagram DMs at first, then Facebook, then her business email. Fiona found her bakery website and started leaving one-star reviews claiming Natalie seduces sick men and breaks up happy relationships. The reviews are deranged. Homewrecker. This woman targets men recovering from surgery when they're vulnerable. Predatory behavior. 0 stars. This baker destroyed my relationship by bringing soup to my fiancé. Who does that? Yeah, who brings soup to sick people? What kind of monster does that? Next, she'll probably offer to do laundry or something equally diabolical. The fake reviews start affecting Natalie's business. Potential clients see them and ask questions. She has to explain the situation to her regular customers. Natalie shows me the messages, and they escalate from passive-aggressive to straight-up threatening. Stay away from what's mine. You don't know who you're messing with. Homewreckers get what they deserve. I'm starting to get scared, Natalie admits. Don't be scared. We're documenting everything. Then the threats start. Actual, explicit threats sent to Natalie's business Instagram. Screenshots of our apartment building with captions like, I know where you sleep. The messages become increasingly unhinged. She threatens to make Natalie disappear and promises that homewreckers always get what's coming to them. That's it, I say. We're done playing games. I filed for a restraining order. The evidence is crystal clear. Photos of her car stalking my building, screenshots of the threatening messages, copies of the psycho notes left on my car. The judge takes one look and grants it immediately. She had to stay 500 feet away from me, my apartment, my workplace, and from Natalie. Temporary relief. For about a week, the stalking stops. No more car, no more notes, no more messages to Natalie. I start thinking maybe she got the message. Then comes the grand finale. And let me tell you, you're absolutely gonna love this. It's about 10 p.m. I'm on the couch with Natalie watching Netflix while Liam's making grilled cheese in the kitchen. First normal evening in months. Then we hear car doors slamming, footsteps on stairs, and someone pounding on my door like the building's on fire. Zach, I know you're in there. Fiona's voice slurred and desperate. Open this freaking door! I look through the peephole. She's swaying drunk, holding a wine bottle, wearing pajama pants and a tank top like she just rolled out of bed. Completely unhinged. You ruined my life! Come out here and face me! Natalie immediately starts recording while Liam calls 911. I keep watching through the peephole, documenting everything. I gave you everything. 3 years of my life. She starts kicking the door, leaving actual scuff marks on the wood. That bitch neighbor turned you against me. I see what's happening. It's a conspiracy. Then she notices the peephole and comes right up to it, face distorted in the lens. The view was hilarious. She looked as intimidating as a goldfish. I know you're watching. Come out here like a man. The neighbor's doors start opening. Mrs. Patterson from 3B peeks out. Mr. Johnson from 3A steps into the hallway. Everyone's getting a show, and Fiona's too drunk to notice or care. Liam hangs up with 911 and grins at me. Want to have some fun before the cops get here? What do you mean? He disappears into the kitchen and comes back with a container of flour. Trust me. We wait until she starts kicking again. Then Liam cracks the door just enough to dump the entire container over her head. She screams like a banshee, completely covered in white powder, clawing at her face and stumbling backward. Looks like a demented ghost who got fired from a haunted house for overacting. You fucking psychos! I will show you all! This is assault! Flower, it's Flower, you lunatic! Liam calls through the door. Self-defense against home invasion. Also, you look like a very angry snowman. Natalie and I were dying laughing. The cops arrive just as she's trying to wipe Flower out of her eyes while screaming threats. They find her covered head to toe in white powder, clearly intoxicated, outside an apartment she's legally banned from approaching. The lead officer takes one look at the scene. Fiona looking like a flower-covered nightmare. Me calmly handing over printed copies of the restraining order and threat screenshots. Natalie's video evidence of the door kicking, and just shakes his head. Ma'am, you're under arrest for violation of a restraining order, public intoxication, and harassment. They assaulted me, she screamed. The officer cleared his throat. Ahem, I can tell. Let's go. They cuffed her while she's still spitting flour and screaming about manipulation and conspiracy theories. The neighbors are all watching from their doors, getting front row seats to the best entertainment this building's seen in years. Mrs. Patterson from 3B was actually chewing something and clapping. That was better than Netflix. As they're walking her to the patrol car, she turns back and screams, Karma will get to you, Zach! This isn't over! Liam leaned against the doorframe, still holding the empty flour container, and called back, We'll be waiting, sweetheart. Last image of my ex-fiancé, covered in flour, hands cuffed, being stuffed into a police car while screaming about victimhood. Should have been the cover photo for How Not to Handle a Breakup, a Masterclass. The arrest made local news. Woman violates restraining order, gets covered in flour during domestic dispute. Her employer saw it. Her remaining friends saw it. Her family saw it. She lost her job within 48 hours. Her professional reputation, already hanging by a thread, completely disintegrates. 6 months later, she's living in a different state with relatives who barely tolerate her, working retail because no marketing firm will touch her after the online meltdown, and still posting occasionally about the injustice she suffered. Meanwhile, I'm fully recovered. Natalie and I are planning to move in together. Liam's got enough blackmail material to last decades, and I wake up every morning grateful that Toomer showed me who Fiona really was before I made the biggest mistake of my life. Turns out the best revenge is just, well, actually getting someone covered in flour and dragged away in handcuffs. GG. Story 4. This story is titled, My Mother-in-Law Tried to Steal My Inherited House with a Fake Lawyer. She didn't know I'm a real one until it blew up in her face. Hey everyone. Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Hey everyone, I've been debating whether or not to share this, but I finally decided to go for it. This story is a mix of weird, frustrating, and, now that it's over, kind of funny. To start, I'm a 35-year-old guy who's been a lawyer for a little over 10 years. I don't go around broadcasting it because it's usually better to let people underestimate me. Plus, when you tell someone you're a lawyer, they either want free advice or act weird about it, so I just keep it low-key unless I have to bring it up. My wife, Stacy, and I have been married for about 6 years, and things are great between us. We're a team, which is important when you're dealing with certain family members, like her mom, Patty. Now, Patty is, let's say, intense. She's one of those people who believes she's always right, always knows best, and always has to be involved in everything. From the moment I met her, it was clear she wasn't thrilled about me. For context, Stacy grew up in a pretty tight-knit family, but Patty was the ringleader. She controlled everything, from the family vacations to who brought what to Thanksgiving dinner. She's the kind of person who has opinions about everything, and she's not shy about sharing them. When I came into the picture, I think Patty saw me as some kind of threat. I wasn't the high society doctor or businessman she probably envisioned for her daughter. I grew up middle class, worked my butt off to get through law school, and now I'm doing pretty well for myself. But Patty, she couldn't care less about my accomplishments. To her, I was the guy who was taking her daughter away. At first, I tried to keep things civil. I mean, she's my mother-in-law, and Stacy loves her, so I figured I'd just grin and bear it. But Patty made that really difficult. She had this way of making little comments that sounded innocent on the surface, but were clearly meant to dig at me. Like, at family dinners, she'd say stuff like, "Oh, you're a lawyer? My cousin's son is studying law at Harvard." Or, "It's nice that you work so hard." Stacy's ex never had to. His family has real money. Stacy, to her credit, always had my back. She'd call her mom out, but Patty would play the victim every time, saying she was just making conversation or didn't mean anything by it. Classic Patty. The real drama started when my uncle passed away 2 years ago. He left me this little beach house in his will. It's nothing fancy, just a small two-bedroom place that's been in the family for years. The paint's peeling, the roof needs some work, and the plumbing is questionable, but it's got charm. Stacy and I fell in love with it immediately, and we decided to fix it up and use it as a weekend getaway spot. As soon as Patty heard about the beach house, she started acting weird. At first, it was just little comments like, "Oh, a beach house. That's a lot of responsibility for someone your age." Or, "Are you sure you can afford to keep it up?" Stuff that was annoying but easy to brush off. But then she started showing up unannounced, claiming she was just in the area. By the way, we live about 60 miles from her, and the beach house is even farther. So her excuse didn't make any sense. One day, I caught her snooping around the house while Stacy and I were out. Our neighbor, an older guy named Frank, who's retired and keeps an eye on the area, called me to let me know he saw a woman with big hair poking around the property. Patty has hair that could survive a tornado, so I knew it was her. When I confronted her, she acted like it was no big deal. "I just wanted to make sure everything was okay," she said, like she hadn't just trespassed on my property. Things got even weirder when I started noticing small changes around the house. A chair would be moved, a window would be unlocked that I was sure I'd locked, or little items would be out of place. Stacy thought I was imagining things, but I knew something was up. One day, I came back from running errands and found a folder sitting on the kitchen table. Inside were a bunch of papers, property documents to be exact. At first, I thought it was some kind of prank, but then I saw Patty's handwriting in the margins. She'd scribbled notes like family legacy and secure ownership. That's when it clicked. Patty wasn't just being nosy. She had some kind of plan for the house. I decided to keep quiet about it for a while and just gather information. As a lawyer, I've learned that it's better to have all the facts before you confront someone. Plus, I wanted to see how far she'd go. I set up a couple of cameras around the house, not in a creepy way, just in the common areas, to catch anything suspicious. Sure enough, within a week, I had footage of Patty letting herself in with a spare key she must have copied without our knowledge. When I showed the footage to Stacy, she was livid. She confronted Patty, who denied everything at first, then shifted gears and said she was just trying to help. Stacy told her to stay away from the house, and for a while things seemed to calm down. But I should have known Patty wouldn't let it go that easily. About 6 months later, that's when things really went off the rails. Patty showed up at the beach house one sunny Saturday morning, uninvited, big shocker there, with a man she proudly introduced as my lawyer. I was mid-bagel enjoying the peace and quiet when Stacy called me out from the porch. I stepped outside, and there they were. Patty, in her signature too-tight blazer and towering hair, and this guy who looked like he'd just Googled business casual 5 minutes before leaving the house. He was holding a briefcase that might have been older than me and had this nervous look, like he wasn't entirely sure why he was there. "Good morning," Patty said brightly, as if she hadn't just barged onto private property. "We need to talk about some important family matters." I raised an eyebrow. "Is that so?" "Yes," she said, sweeping past me like she owned the place. "It's about the future of this house. And by the way, you're welcome for me coming all this way to help you sort it out." Now, I'll admit, I was curious. Patty wasn't subtle, but she wasn't usually this bold either. I figured I'd let her dig her own grave before stepping in. Stacy, meanwhile, was staring at her mom like she'd just announced she was running for president. Patty gestured to the kitchen table, where she promptly sat down and opened up a manila folder. "Todd, let's get started," she said, snapping her fingers at the guy in the Halloween suit. Todd, who looked like he wanted to be anywhere else, fumbled with his briefcase and pulled out a stack of papers. I glanced at Stacy, who mouthed, "What the hell?" I shrugged. This was Patty's show, and I wasn't about to interrupt the performance. "This," Patty began, tapping the top sheet with a manicured finger, "is a transfer of ownership agreement. It's very simple. You and Stacy will sign the house over to me, and I'll ensure it remains within the family for generations to come." I stared at her, trying not to laugh. "You want us to sign the house over to you?" She said yes, as if it were the most reasonable request in the world. "It's for the best. You're young, inexperienced, and frankly, this kind of property is a lot of responsibility. It needs someone who understands its value. And that someone is you?" I asked, barely holding back a grin. "Exactly," she said, looking proud of herself. "It's not personal, dear. It's just what's best for the family." Todd, who had been shuffling papers around like a magician preparing for a card trick, finally spoke up. "If you'll just take a look here," he said, sliding a paper toward me. I picked it up and scanned it quickly. It was a joke. The wording was sloppy, half the clauses were missing, and there were typos everywhere. Everything about this lawyer screamed fake from his nervous sweating, to the way he couldn't make eye contact. I decided to have some fun, ask him some basic legal questions. Any first-year law student could answer. I watched him squirm and stumble while Patty kept trying to cut in. Patty, I said, setting the paper down. Did you write this yourself? Her face flushed. Of course not. Todd is a professional. Right, I said, turning to Todd. So, Todd, what law school did you go to? He blinked. Well, I didn't exactly finish. I cut him off. Okay, no problem. What's your bar number? Todd started sweating. I'm not officially licensed. Not officially licensed? I repeated, feigning confusion. So, you're not a lawyer? He stammered something about being in the process, but I didn't let him finish. Got it. Thanks, Todd. Patty jumped in, clearly irritated that her plan was unraveling. Let's not get distracted by technicalities. The important thing is that we move forward with the transfer. Patty, Stacy said, her voice sharp. Are you serious right now? You brought a fake lawyer to our house and expect us to just hand it over to you? It's not fake, Patty snapped. Todd is perfectly capable of handling this. Sure, I said, leaning back in my chair. But just for fun, let's see how capable he is. I turned to Todd. Can you explain to me the difference between a quitclaim deed and a warranty deed? Todd froze like a deer in headlights. Patty tried to jump in, but I held up a hand. No, let Todd answer. Todd mumbled something about legal terms and specific clauses, but didn't actually say anything coherent. I nodded like I was impressed. Great, I said. Now, how about you explain the implications of signing a deed transfer without title insurance? Todd looked like he might pass out. Patty was visibly fuming. This is ridiculous, she said. Just sign the papers and we can sort out the details later. I stood up, walked over to my briefcase, and pulled out my own folder. As a practicing attorney, I said, laying the folder on the table, I have a few concerns about these documents. Patty's jaw dropped. You're a lawyer? Yup, I said, popping the P for emphasis. And these documents? They're garbage. I went through the papers one by one, pointing out every error and explaining, in excruciating detail, why they were not only invalid, but also borderline fraudulent. By the time I was done, Todd was visibly shaking, and Patty was staring daggers at me. You've made your point, she said through gritted teeth. Oh, I'm not done, I said, pulling out my laptop. You've been poking around the property records, haven't you? Did you think I wouldn't notice the unauthorized inquiries? Patty's face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you don't, I said, opening up an email on my screen. This is from the county clerk. It shows that someone made multiple inquiries into the title history of this property using your email address. Care to explain? Patty stood up abruptly, knocking her chair over. I was just looking out for the family, she shouted. By trying to steal our house? Stacy shot back. This is insane, Mom. You need to leave. Patty glared at us, then turned to Todd. We're leaving. Todd didn't need to be told twice. He grabbed his briefcase and practically sprinted out the door. Patty followed, but not before throwing one last line over her shoulder. You'll regret this. Once they were gone, Stacy and I just sat there in stunned silence for a moment. Well, she said finally, that was something I'll be filing away for future reference. I said, and that's how Patty's first big plan completely fell apart. I didn't know it at the time, but this was only the beginning of her antics. After Patty's grand transfer the house to me scheme fell apart, she decided to go into full-blown damage control mode. And when I say damage control, I mean she started dialing up family members like she was campaigning for office. Apparently, Patty's version of events went something like this. I was an evil, controlling husband who was tearing the family apart, brainwashing Stacy, and forcing her to cut ties with her loving mother. According to Patty, I was practically twisting my villainous lawyer mustache while plotting to destroy everything she held dear. Now, Stacy's family is pretty tight-knit, but they're also not stupid. Most of them know Patty's flair for drama and her habit of bending the truth like it's a yoga pose. Still, a few relatives called me up, curious about what was really going on. After I explained the whole situation, most people just laughed and told me not to worry. Apparently, Patty had been pulling stunts like this for years, though maybe not on this scale. Her reputation for creative truth-telling, as one cousin put it, had already earned her a fair share of skeptics in the family. But not everyone brushed it off so easily. A couple of her die-hard supporters, like her sister Beverly, who's basically Patty's clone, weren't so quick to believe me. Beverly called Stacy, and let me tell you, that was a fun conversation to overhear. Stacy, I just don't understand why you're letting your husband come between you and your mother, Beverly said, in that holier-than-thou tone that runs in their family. My husband isn't the problem, Beverly, Stacy shot back. Mom is the one who tried to steal our house. Well, that's not what she told me, Beverly said, like she was some kind of detective uncovering the truth. Of course it's not, Stacy replied, because if she told you the real story, you'd see how ridiculous she's being. Beverly tried to argue, but Stacy shut her down. Look, you can believe whatever you want, but I was there. I saw what she did. End of discussion. Stacy hung up, and I swear I could see the steam coming out of her ears. I don't know why I even bother with her, she muttered. Meanwhile, Patty wasn't just working the phones. She was also working herself into a frenzy. She started showing up at family events with this air of martyrdom, dropping little comments about how she wasn't sure she'd ever see her daughter again, or how some people don't appreciate family anymore. It was peak passive-aggressive Patty, and honestly, it was almost impressive how far she could take it. But things upgraded into a new level when Patty's antics spilled over into her professional life. Apparently, she'd been using company resources to dig up information about the beach house. She must have thought no one would notice, but of course someone did. One day, Stacy got a call from one of her cousins who works in HR. Small world, right? Did you hear about Patty? The cousin asked. What about her? Stacy replied. She got fired. Apparently, she was using her work email to look up property records and send messages about, something shady. Stacy put the phone on speaker so I could hear, and we both just stared at each other in disbelief. Patty got herself fired trying to dig up dirt on us. It didn't take long for the rest of the family to find out, and let's just say Patty's reputation took another hit. A few people who had been on the fence started calling us to apologize for doubting our side of the story. I can't believe she went that far, one of Stacy's cousins said. She always seemed pushy, but this is next level. Yeah, I said. Welcome to the club. With her job gone and her family starting to distance themselves, Patty's social calendar started looking pretty empty. But if you think that slowed her down, you don't know Patty. A week after she got fired, we started getting weird messages from mutual acquaintances. Stuff like, Patty says she's really worried about you guys. Or Patty mentioned you might be struggling financially. Do you need any help? It didn't take a genius to figure out what she was doing. She was trying to plant the idea that Stacy and I couldn't handle the beach house. I guess in her mind, if enough people believed we were incapable, she'd swoop in as the hero to save the day. I considered confronting her, but Stacy convinced me to let it go. She's digging her own grave, Stacy said. Let her keep talking. It just makes her look worse. And she was right. The more Patty talked, the more people started to see through her. Even her diehard supporters like Beverly were starting to get tired of the drama. But just when we thought things were finally settling down, Patty pulled her boldest move yet. About a month later, we got a notice in the mail. It was from a lawyer, an actual licensed one this time, informing us that Patty was suing us. When I opened the letter and read the details, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Patty was claiming that she had financially contributed to the repairs and upkeep of the beach house, and therefore had a valid stake in it. Never mind the fact that the house had been left to Stacy and me outright in my uncle's will. I sat there in stunned silence for a moment before bursting out laughing. She's suing us, I said, waving the letter at Stacy. For what? She asked, grabbing the paper. Apparently, she thinks she owns part of the house now, I said, still laughing. Because, all those non-existent financial contributions she made. And just like that, we were back in the thick of it. After we got the notice, I started gathering everything. Bank statements, receipts, contracts with repair companies, and even emails related to the estate. I wasn't about to let her muddy the waters with vague claims and manipulative theatrics. Stacy, understandably, was livid. She didn't pay for a single thing. How does she think she's going to prove this? She's banking on us not being able to prove it either, I said. But we can, and we will. Her whole case is smoke and mirrors. What do we do now? Stacy asked. We show up to court, and we let her dig her own hole, I replied. When the court date finally arrived, we walked into the courtroom prepared for anything. Patty, of course, was already there, seated at the plaintiff's table with her lawyer. Unlike the fake lawyer Todd, this one at least looked professional, though he didn't seem particularly enthusiastic about the case. Patty, on the other hand, was in her element. She was dressed in her signature over-the-top style and had this smug expression, like she'd already won. We sat down, and the judge entered, an older woman who radiated authority. She got straight to business, asking Patty's lawyer to present their case. Patty's lawyer stood up and began what was clearly a rehearsed speech. He started by praising Patty's character, describing her as a dedicated and loving mother who only wanted to preserve the family's legacy. Then he moved on to her claims, stating that Patty had personally invested significant funds into the repair and maintenance of the beach house to ensure it remained in good condition. She has receipts, I whispered to Stacy, raising an eyebrow. She has nerve, Stacy muttered back. Patty's lawyer continued, explaining that while the house was indeed inherited, Patty's alleged financial contributions created an implied interest in the property. She acted in good faith to protect and preserve the family's asset, he concluded. When it was my turn, I decided to keep it short and sweet. Your Honor, the plaintiff's claims are entirely unfounded. The house was left to my wife and me as part of my uncle's will. It is our property, and there was never any agreement, verbal or otherwise, for shared ownership. The plaintiff has no documentation to support her claims, because they are simply not true. The judge nodded and motioned for Patty to take the stand. Patty walked up like she was about to deliver the performance of her life. Mrs. Patty, her lawyer began, can you explain your involvement with the repairs and maintenance of the beach house? Of course, she said, clasping her hands together. When I heard about the house being left to my daughter and son-in-law, I was so happy for them. But the house needed a lot of work, and they were overwhelmed. So I stepped in to help. And how did you help? The lawyer asked. I paid for several repairs, Patty said confidently. Plumbing, roof work, even some landscaping. I didn't keep track of every little thing because, well, they're family. I just wanted to make sure the house was livable. I watched her with a neutral expression, but inside I was shaking my head. Patty's ability to spin a story was almost impressive. Her lawyer pressed on. So, you contributed financially to the upkeep of the house? She said yes. I even offered to oversee some of the work myself. Did the defendants acknowledge these contributions? It was understood, she said, using her favorite vague excuse. When it was my turn to cross-examine, I walked up to the stand with my stack of documents. Mrs. Patty, I began, you claim to have contributed financially to the repairs of the beach house? Can you specify the amounts and dates of these payments? She hesitated. Well, I didn't keep an exact record, but it was thousands of dollars over several months. Thousands of dollars, I repeated. And how were these payments made? Check? Cash? Directly to the contractors? Mostly cash, she said, shifting in her seat. Cash, I said, letting the word hang in the air. And you don't have a single receipt, invoice, or bank statement to corroborate these contributions? She hesitated. It was informal. Family doesn't always keep track of these things. Interesting, I said, turning to the judge. Because I have here a complete record of all payments made for the repair and maintenance of the beach house. Every single one was made from our joint account, and I have the receipts and contractor invoices to prove it. I handed the documents to the judge, who began flipping through them. Mrs. Patty, I continued, you also mentioned offering to oversee some of the work yourself. Can you tell us which contractors you worked with? She paused, clearly scrambling for an answer. It wasn't a formal arrangement, she said finally. That's convenient, I replied. Because according to these emails from the contractors, every interaction regarding the repairs was handled by me or my wife. Your name doesn't appear anywhere. The judge looked up from the documents, her expression unreadable. Mrs. Patty, do you have any evidence to support your claims? Patty stammered. I told you, I didn't keep records. I wasn't expecting to need them. I stepped back to my table and pulled out one last piece of evidence. Your Honor, I'd also like to submit a copy of the will, which clearly states that the house was left solely to my wife and me. There is no mention of shared ownership or any financial obligations. The judge took the document and glanced at it briefly. Then she turned back to Patty. Mrs. Patty, she said, her tone firm, this case relies entirely on your assertion that you contributed financially to the property, yet you have provided no evidence to support this claim. Meanwhile, the defendants have provided ample documentation to refute it. Do you have anything else to add? She didn't have anything to say. For the first time, she seemed to realize just how bad this was going for her. The judge dismissed the case shortly after that, ruling entirely in our favor. But before the gavel fell, she added a pointed remark. Mrs. Patty, I strongly advise you to think carefully before pursuing legal action in the future, without evidence to support your claims. Court resources are not here for baseless disputes. As Stacy and I walked out of the courtroom, I couldn't help but feel a mix of satisfaction. Patty had tried her best to undermine us, but the truth had prevailed. Of course, knowing Patty, I doubted this was the end of her meddling. And well, I was right. After losing in court so decisively, you'd think she'd take a moment to reflect, maybe reconsider her life choices. But no, Patty doubled down in the only way she knew how, by trying to spin the narrative in her favor. The first ripple of fallout came almost immediately. Patty's failed lawsuit became the family's new favorite topic of discussion. Word spread quickly, and within days, I started getting calls and texts from relatives. Most of them wanted the juicy details, but some were genuinely shocked by the lengths Patty had gone to. My favorite call came from Stacy's cousin Brenda, who always had a knack for delivering brutal honesty. She really thought she was going to win, huh? Brenda said, laughing. I mean, I knew Aunt Patty was bold, but this is a whole new level. Honestly, I don't even know why she thought anyone would believe her. She's been pulling this kind of crap for years, Brenda added. That sentiment became a common theme in the family. People started sharing stories about times when Patty had manipulated, lied, or otherwise inserted herself into situations where she didn't belong. It was like her courtroom flop had opened the floodgates, and everyone was finally ready to air their grievances. Apparently, years ago, she had tried to get control over her sister's finances by claiming her sister was too stressed to handle money. Another time, she had convinced a cousin to hand over a family heirloom because it would be safer with her. And the heirloom mysteriously disappeared after that. Stacy and I mostly stayed out of the gossip, but it was hard not to feel a little vindicated. Patty's carefully crafted image as the family matriarch was crumbling. And it wasn't because of anything we did. She had dug this hole all on her own. But while the family was turning against her, Patty wasn't about to let go of her grudge. She started sending Stacy these long, guilt-trippy texts about how the court case had hurt her deeply and how she couldn't believe her own daughter would betray her like that. She's acting like we dragged her to court, Stacy said, rolling her eyes as she read the latest message. Typical Patty, I said. She's not sorry for what she did. She's just sorry it didn't work. Stacy ended up blocking her number for a while, which only escalated things further. Patty took to social media, posting vague, passive-aggressive statuses about being abandoned by those you love most. I give it 2 days before she's on Facebook Live, crying in front of a bunch of ceramic angels, I joked. It was funny at first, but then Patty started trying to recruit allies. She called up anyone who would listen, spinning a sob story about how Stacy and I had turned on her and how all she wanted was to keep the family together. One of the first people she called was her sister Beverly, who had always been one of Patty's staunchest supporters. But even Beverly seemed to have her limits. She called me crying, Beverly told Stacy during a phone call. But honestly, I didn't know what to say. I mean, you're my niece, and what she did? It was wrong. I can't defend her this time. Hearing that from Beverly was a big deal. If Patty was losing her, she was losing her biggest cheerleader. Despite the backlash, Patty wasn't ready to go quietly. Her next move was to try to appeal to the family matriarch, Stacy's grandma, who had always been a neutral party in family disputes. Patty drove out to see her, unannounced as usual, and spent 2 hours crying about how she'd been wronged. To her credit, Grandma didn't buy into it. According to Stacy's cousin Brenda, who heard the story later, Grandma told Patty in no uncertain terms that she needed to stop causing drama and take responsibility for her actions. She said that? Stacy asked when Brenda relayed the story. Yup. Apparently, Grandma told her, I love you, but this is your mess, and you need to clean it up. Patty, of course, left in a huff, but the damage was done. She'd alienated almost everyone in the family, and no amount of crocodile tears could fix that. Meanwhile, Stacy and I felt free. The beach house was finally ours, the lawsuit was behind us, and Patty had gone quiet. For a little while anyway. But in the back of my mind, I knew it was only a matter of time before she pulled another stunt. Stacy and I talked a lot about what our future with Patty would look like. I was ready to cut ties completely. After everything she'd done, I couldn't see a path forward. But Stacy wasn't there yet. She's still my mom, she said one night as we sat on the porch. I know she's toxic, and I know she's done awful things, but it's hard to let go completely. What if she really does change? I didn't want to push her, but I also knew that holding on to hope with someone like Patty could be dangerous. I get it, I said carefully. But you've seen what she's capable of. This isn't just a bad habit or a personality quirk. She's deliberately tried to hurt us. That's not something you can just forgive and forget. Stacy sighed. I know. I don't know if I'm ready to walk away completely. So we compromised. Stacy kept minimal contact with Patty, an occasional text or a quick phone call, but we set firm boundaries. No unannounced visits, no discussions about the house, and no manipulation. For a while, it seemed to work. Patty stayed relatively quiet, only reaching out to Stacy with surface-level conversations. I could tell it was hard for Stacy to keep her distance, but she was holding firm, and I respected her for it. Then Patty did what classic her does best. She crossed the line. It started innocently enough. Stacy got a call from a cousin who mentioned that Patty had been talking about the beach house again. She said something about how it should have stayed in the family, the cousin said. I didn't think much of it, but I figured you'd want to know. Stacy brushed it off, thinking it was just Patty venting. But I could see the worry creeping in. What if she's planning something? She asked me. She wouldn't be that stupid, I said. Not after what happened in court. She knows she can't win. But I underestimated just how far Patty was willing to go. One weekend, Stacy and I drove out to the beach house to spend a couple of days relaxing. As we pulled into the driveway, something felt off. The front door was slightly ajar, and there was a box sitting on the porch. What the hell? Stacy said, getting out of the car. We walked up to the door cautiously. I pushed it open and my stomach dropped. The living room was a mess. Furniture had been moved, drawers were open, and there was a stack of papers on the coffee table. On top of the pile was a note in Patty's unmistakable handwriting. It read, I'm sorry, but I had to step in. This house is too important to let you ruin it. You'll understand someday. Stacy stood frozen, staring at the note. She was here, she said, her voice shaking. I picked up the papers and started flipping through them. They were estimates for repairs and renovations, new flooring, updated appliances, landscaping. It was like Patty had come in and started planning a full remodel without telling us. She broke in, I said, anger rising in my chest. She let herself into our house and decided she was in charge. Stacy sat down on the couch, her face pale. I can't believe this, she whispered. I grabbed my phone and pulled up the security camera app. Sure enough, there she was. Patty, walking into the house with a clipboard and a tape measure like she was auditioning for HGTV. She had spent hours in the house, going through our things and making notes. Stacy watched the footage with me, her expression hardening with every passing second. By the time we got to the end, she was furious. She didn't just cross the line, Stacy said quietly. She obliterated it. I nodded. This is who she is, Stacy. She's not going to change. She's always going to feel entitled to control your life. Stacy was quiet for a long time. Finally, she looked at me and said, You know what? I'm done. I can't do this anymore. That night, Stacy called Patty and confronted her. I can't believe you would do this, she said. You broke into our house. You went through our things. How could you think that's okay? Patty tried to play the victim, as always. I was just trying to help, she said. You've been ignoring me, and I thought this would show you how much I care. This isn't love, Mom, Stacy said firmly. This is control, and I'm done letting you manipulate me. Patty started to cry, but Stacy didn't waver. I don't want to hear from you anymore, she said. Not until you've actually changed, and I mean really changed. I'm blocking your number, and I don't want you coming near us or the house again. Patty tried to argue, but Stacy hung up. Then she blocked her number and deleted her from all her social media accounts. It wasn't an easy decision for Stacy, but it was the right one. Patty had crossed so many lines that there was no coming back from it. In the days that followed, Stacy and I both felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. Cutting ties with Patty wasn't something Stacy had ever wanted to do, but it had become clear that there was no other option. This isn't just about us anymore, Stacy said one evening as we sat on the porch. It's about protecting our future, our peace. She doesn't get to take that from us. The beach house, once a symbol of Patty's interference, was now a sanctuary, a place where we could finally move forward without looking back. And that, more than anything, was worth every battle we'd fought. Story 5. My wife stood up at our friend's dinner party, announcing, I'm divorcing him. 10 years of babysitting a grown man is enough. She laughed, but I sensed this was coming. I just nodded calmly. Indeed. Her smug expression shattered. When her attorney explained our prenup meant I kept 75% of everything. Suddenly, her liberation speech turned to desperate bargaining. Hey everyone! Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Hey all, I just finalized my divorce after my wife tried to take me for everything I'm worth. Time to unload a little. Okay, so I need to start from the beginning or none of this makes sense. I, 45 male, have been running my own construction management firm for 15 years now. Not some huge corporation bullshit, but a solid business that pays the bills and then some. We specialize in mid-sized commercial projects. Strip malls, office renovations, that kind of thing. Started it with just me and 2 guys I trusted. Now we've got 28 employees and offices in 2 cities. Not trying to brag, just setting the stage here. I met Beth, 30 female, about 12 years ago at a friend's housewarming. She was 30 then, freshly dumped by some guy who left her with a mountain of credit card debt and student loans from a philosophy degree she never used. She was working as a part-time fitness instructor, barely making rent in a shitty apartment with 3 roommates. She had this side gig selling essential oils or something through one of those MLM things, but it wasn't going anywhere. We hit it off right away. She was gorgeous, yeah, tall, athletic, with this infectious laugh that could light up a room. But it wasn't just the looks. She had this energy about her, ambitious but lost. Like she knew she was meant for bigger things, but couldn't figure out the path. I could tell she just needed someone to believe in her. So I did, being the supportive therapist I am. First date was nothing fancy, just coffee that turned into lunch, that turned into dinner, because we couldn't stop talking. By the third date, I was helping her make a budget to tackle her debt. By the sixth, I was falling hard. There was just something about her determination that got me. She wasn't looking for handouts. She wanted to build something of her own. After we dated for a few months, I helped her consolidate her debt. Wasn't trying to be her savior or anything, but watching her stress over minimum payments while interest piled up was stupid when I could help. I paid off the highest interest cards, and she started making payments to me instead. No interest. Made way more sense financially. We moved in together after 8 months, got engaged at 18 months. When we got married 2 years after meeting, I even fronted the cash for her to start her own health supplement brand, some subscription box thing with protein powders and herbal supplements. She had this vision of building a wellness empire, targeting women who wanted natural fitness solutions, whatever that meant. But she was passionate about it, and I wanted to support her dreams. Before we tied the knot, I insisted on a prenup. Not because I didn't trust her, I was crazy about her, but because I watched my dad lose everything in his divorce 20 years earlier. The man built a plumbing business for 30 years and ended up living in a studio apartment while his ex-wife, not my mom, kept the house, the vacation property, and half his future earnings. Dad died still bitter about it. Taught me that love doesn't protect you from someone's entitlement when things go south. So I was straight up with Beth about it. Look, I'm building something that I plan to someday pass down to our kids, I told her. I need to protect that core asset. Everything we build together will be ours together, but what I bring in has to stay protected. Beth wasn't thrilled about the prenup, pouted for a few days, but seemed to get it eventually. I understand why you need this protection, she said after meeting with the lawyer I paid for. I'd never try to take what you built before me. She signed it, and we moved on. The terms were pretty standard. I kept what I brought in, she kept what she brought in, which was basically just debt I'd helped her clear. And we'd split anything acquired during marriage 75-25 in my favor if she initiated divorce without cause, abuse, infidelity, etc. If I initiated without cause, she'd get 40%. If we both agreed to divorce, it would be 60-40 in my favor. At the time, it seemed more than fair, given our respective starting positions. She was getting a fresh financial start, and I was protecting what I'd spent years building. The first few years were good. Real good. We moved into a nice house in a gated community. Nothing flashy, just comfortable. We traveled a bit. Her business grew steady. Not huge, but respectable. She had about 5,000 subscribers at the peak, bringing in maybe $30,000 to $40,000 profit annually. I was proud of her hustle. She'd post workout videos, nutrition tips, all that stuff. Built a little community. I never micromanaged her business or her spending. We had separate accounts for personal stuff, joint accounts for household expenses, and her business had its own accounts that I helped set up but didn't touch. I just wanted us both to thrive in our lanes. But around year 5, things started shifting. First, it was small stuff. She'd drop $800 on a purse without mentioning it. When I brought it up, she'd say, "Don't you want me to look good?" It's an investment in my brand image. Then it escalated to guilt trips. If you really loved me, you wouldn't question what I spend. Eventually, it became a pattern. Buy something ridiculous, make me feel like shit for asking about it, then give me the silent treatment for days. I hate that manipulative silent treatment crap. Give me a straight-up argument any day. But Beth mastered the art of weaponized silence. She'd just disappear emotionally until I apologized for whatever crime I'd committed, usually by buying her something even more expensive to make up for it. A classic reinforcement of bad behavior, but you don't always see that when you're in it. Year 6, she suddenly needed a home office renovation. Cost me $20,000 to convert our guest room into her creator space, with custom built-ins, perfect lighting for videos, the works. I didn't mind. Business was good, and she seemed genuinely excited about scaling her brand. Year 7, she decides our house isn't good enough anymore. We need something in the right neighborhood to reflect our status. I pushed back a bit, but eventually caved. We bought a bigger place in an even nicer gated community. 4 bed, 5 bath, way more than we needed for just the two of us, but whatever made her happy. I was working 60-hour weeks anyway, barely home to enjoy it. Looking back, I should have seen what was coming, but you know how it is when you're in it. You excuse the red flags as rough patches and keep pushing forward. I just figured she was going through some kind of phase, or maybe feeling insecure about her business not growing as fast as mine. I tried to be supportive, keep the peace. Around our 8th year together, Beth started referring to our house as her design project when talking to friends. First time I heard it, I laughed it off. By the 10th time, it bugged me. We'd picked everything together, and I'd paid for 90% of it. But suddenly, she was acting like she'd created this amazing space all on her own. She started hosting these wellness brunches at our place, where she'd invite a bunch of women over. I'd come home to find these groups of women sitting around our living room, drinking green smoothies and talking about manifesting abundance or whatever. Normally, I wouldn't care. It was her house too. She could have friends over. But I started noticing how she talked about me when I wasn't supposed to be listening. Mike's at work, as usual, with this dismissive tone. Or, men just don't understand the vision we have as female entrepreneurs. Little digs that added up. Whenever I had a business win, landing a major client or hitting a revenue milestone, she'd brush it off. That's good, babe. You're supposed to make money. But when she gained 100 followers on Instagram, I was expected to bring her a gift and celebrate her brand growth. The shift from partner to a queen with an attitude wasn't overnight. It was slow, subtle. She just gradually decided she deserved everything without acknowledging where it came from. Her attitude became, of course you should buy me nice things. Look who you get to be married to. As if her existence was some kind of gift to me that required constant payment. About 6 months ago, I started noticing weirder shit. Beth suddenly password locked her phone. She'd never done that before. She'd angle her screen away when I walked into a room. Started going to the bathroom to take calls. Spent hours on her laptop with AirPods in, having conversations I couldn't hear. She'd disappear for entire Saturdays for networking events, but was vague about who else was there or what they discussed. Started listening obsessively to these self-empowerment podcasts with titles like Taking What You Deserve and The Value of a Wife. Left the episodes playing on our smart speakers sometimes. Between the usual fitness and wellness accounts were these random lawyers and women's financial coaching pages I'd never seen before. One coach's bio said something weird like, helping women secure the bag their husbands didn't know they packed. Another had this tagline about reclaiming your worth in a relationship and asset protection strategies for modern women. I scrolled through her recent activity, trying to understand why Beth would follow these accounts. That's when I noticed her search history had stuff like marriage contract loopholes and documenting emotional patterns in relationships. There was even a search for how to prove controlling behavior. That last one hit me hard. Controlling? Me? I've always bent over backwards to support her dreams, never questioned her spending, never even raised my voice during arguments. Why would she be looking into this stuff? Was she helping a friend through something? Planning to become some kind of relationship coach herself? Or was there something more personal behind these searches? I put her phone back exactly where I found it, feeling a weird mix of confusion and unease. Maybe I was overthinking things, but these weren't the kind of accounts a happily married woman typically follows. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was shifting beneath my feet, like the first tremor before an earthquake. Then, out of freaking nowhere, Beth casually asks over dinner, "Hey, could I review our prenup again?" Just curious about something. Alarm bells went off. Nobody gets just curious about a prenup after 10 years unless they're planning something. Why? I asked, trying to sound normal. Oh, just something Jill mentioned about the standard terms these days. Probably nothing, but I'd like to refresh my memory. She smiled like it was no big deal. I told her I'd dig it out of the safe deposit box next time I was at the bank. Never did, of course, but that's when I started paying attention. Real attention. Her inner circle wasn't helping. Her best friend Jill was always saying shit like, "Beth, you're the brand. He's just the background." Or her mom Rita dropping gems like, "A smart woman always secures her future. Men come and go, always when they thought I couldn't hear. But houses have vents and sound travels." Rita had been divorced 3 times, each one leaving her better off financially than the last. She'd been pushing Beth since day one to keep her options open. I used to think it was just Rita being Rita, bitter and high on her own survival story. But then one morning, I was passing by Beth's home office while she was on a call with her mom. On speaker, door halfway closed. I wasn't trying to spy, but when someone's voice echoes through your hallway, you can't exactly unhear it. You should talk to Jasper, Rita said. He's brilliant when it comes to financial resets. Helped one of my friend's daughters sort her situation out clean. You don't have to stay stuck just because you feel obligated. Beth didn't say much, just this little hum of agreement, like the name wasn't new to her. I froze outside the door. Jasper? That wasn't a name I'd heard around our circle. And the way Rita said it, like he was part therapist, part financial assassin, set off something in my gut. Why the hell did they need all this talk about financial resets? They were planning something. I just needed confirmation. That night, I asked Beth casually, "Who's Jasper?" She barely blinked. "Oh, just someone Jill mentioned from a finance group. Cool insights." Then she changed the subject like it was nothing. But it wasn't. I checked her Instagram. There he was, Jasper. Late 30s, polished, smug, bio full of red flags. Helping women reclaim power from financial imbalance. It was a playbook, one designed to bleed men dry. I wasn't confronting Beth yet. I needed to be sure. I asked one of our mutual friends, Kim, at a group dinner. She froze. "No idea who that is," she said too fast. Tara, another friend, slipped up over coffee. "I think maybe that's the guy from her investment group." Then she changed the subject like it burned her tongue. That was enough. I had my answer. So one Thursday, I told Beth I had a site inspection across town that would run late. Instead, I wrapped up early and came home around 3 p.m. The garage door was closed, but Beth's car was inside. As I walked in through the side door, I heard murmuring from upstairs. I quietly went up, not trying to catch her cheating. Honestly, that would have been simpler. Instead, I found her in our home office, laptop open on a Zoom call. I stood in the hallway, out of frame, and listened. A man was talking that I bit it's Jasper. "You've wasted 10 years catering to a man's ego," he was saying. "Your contributions to that marriage are worth way more than some outdated prenup. You can own that house. You just need to play it smart. My consulting fee is steep, but once we're done, you'll never worry about money again." Beth was nodding, taking notes. "The prenup doesn't account for emotional labor and lost opportunities," she said. "I could have been huge by now if I hadn't been playing supportive wife. I've put in just as much as he has." "Exactly," he said. "That's why we need to document everything. Every time he made you feel small, every time he questioned your spending or your business decisions. We're building a pattern of control here. You need to start recording conversations, saving texts, anything that shows he limited your growth." I remember standing there like, what the hell is going on? I almost burst in right then. "Supportive wife? Yeah, that's right." But something stopped me. If I confronted her, she'd know I was onto her. Better to let her think her plan was working while I prepared my own defense. I backed away silently, went downstairs, then made noise coming in the front door. "Honey, I'm home early." By the time I got upstairs, the call was ended and she was just checking emails. "How was your inspection?" she asked, all innocent. "Fine," I said. "Foundation looks solid." The irony wasn't lost on me. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because I was sad, because I was freaking pissed, and because I needed a plan. The woman I'd built a life with for a decade was actively plotting to destroy me, to take everything I'd worked for by painting me as some kind of monster. And the worst part? If I hadn't caught on, it might have worked. I didn't confront Beth about Jasper, wouldn't give her the chance to spin some bullshit story or accuse me of spying. Instead, I started preparing, methodically like I would for any business contingency. So first thing next morning, I called my lawyer. I gave him a situation update. We discussed worst-case scenarios and built defenses for each. He said if she was talking to some coach about the prenup, chances were she'd try to claim coercion, fraud, or emotional abuse. Stuff that's hard to disprove. He told me to document everything. Keep a voice recorder on me during tough conversations, save every text and email, and build a record that showed the reality. Her unlimited spending, separate accounts, and all the financial support I'd given her over the years. Next, I pulled all our financial records for the past 5 years. Bank statements, investment accounts, credit card bills, property assessments, everything. I created a timeline of major purchases and transfers, documented every time I'd fronted money for her business, every vacation I'd paid for, every designer item in her closet. I quietly installed security cameras around the house, doorbell, garage, main living areas, all with cloud backup. Not to spy, but to protect myself legally. When someone's planning to screw you over, they often don't stop at financial games. I'd heard horror stories of guys being set up with false domestic violence claims. Wasn't going to let that happen to me. I separated my business accounts further from our personal ones. Technically, they were already separate entities, but I removed any automatic transfers and updated all passwords and access permissions. Changed the passwords on every account I could think of: email, cloud storage, investment portals. I also started documenting everything: every conversation, every weird request, every time she met with Jill or mentioned Jasper. Not in a creepy way, just notes with dates and basic facts. If this was headed where I thought, I'd need a clear record. At that point, I started wondering if I was going too far, because what I'm doing felt too much. Like I'm suddenly a detective, not a husband. I kept thinking, what if this was all just noise? What if the wellness calls and cryptic comments were just her being dramatic, not dangerous? I hated the idea of seeing my own wife as a threat, but that gut feeling wouldn't go away. If I ignored it and she really was setting me up, I'd only have myself to blame. I set up a separate email account she didn't know about and started forwarding important documents there. Backed up photos and videos of us together. They showed a happy couple, not some abusive situation she might try to invent. The whole time I acted normal. Still brought her coffee in the morning. Still asked about her day. Still showed up for the dinners and events that mattered to her. I wasn't trying to punish her, just protect myself. About 2 weeks into my prep, I saw an opening I couldn't ignore. We were refinancing the lake house that summer. Routine stuff, just locking in a better rate. Normally, Beth didn't care much about the paperwork side of things. As long as the payment stayed manageable and she could decorate however she wanted, she was happy to let me handle the logistics. But lately, she'd been laser-focused on anything financial, asking to review the prenup, dropping terms she'd never used before. So when I sat down with my lawyer, I asked if we could revisit the agreement, add protections in case false claims ever entered the picture. Nothing drastic, just something to trigger a more one-sided split. 85-15, if things went nuclear under certain accusations like coercion or emotional abuse. If she filed honestly, or we agreed mutually, the original terms would still stand. We didn't remove her protections. We just added clarity for mine. When the paperwork came in, I framed it exactly how it was. Hey, you asked about the prenup stuff a few weeks ago, I told her. They said since we're refinancing the lake house, they needed everything updated and re-executed to be clean on record. So they included a fresh copy. You'll need to sign again. It's standard when properties are involved. You can look through it if you want. Most of it's the same. And to her credit, she actually read through a good chunk. Not cover to cover, but she flipped through the prenup pages, highlighted a section about asset retention, made a few comments about how outdated the wording sounded. As she skimmed through, I mentioned the Sedona spa package I'd booked for her, the one she'd been daydreaming about for months. 5 days, all inclusive. Her face softened. She smiled, said something about how perfectly timed it was, and kept working through the paperwork at her pace. There was no pressure. I stayed quiet, focused on my own stack beside her. Eventually, she initialed every page and signed at the end, adding her usual smiley face next to her name, just like always. You deserve it, I told her, and I meant that, in a way. I wasn't trying to trap her. I was protecting myself from what she was already halfway planning. After she got back from the spa retreat, the tension was unbearable. We weren't arguing, but we weren't normal either. Every word felt careful, every glance too controlled. She smiled like everything was fine, but something had shifted, and I knew she felt it too. We were both quietly sizing each other up. What hit me hardest was the confusion. I gave everything to that relationship: time, money, support. Whatever she needed, I was there. And for a long time, she seemed genuinely happy. Not fake, not forced. Happy. So why now? Why twist something solid into a strategy? It made no sense, unless happiness had just been part of the act. 2 weeks later, Tara was hosting a birthday dinner at her place. Just close friends, Beth said, which meant Jill, Rita, a couple from her fitness studio, and that guy Dan who did her brand photography. Not my crowd, but whatever. I played nice, made small talk, complimented the food. During dessert, Beth held her glass and stood up. I want to toast to Tara on her birthday, and to all of you amazing people who've been part of my journey, she said, all misty-eyed. You've watched me grow from a struggling fitness teacher to building my brand. And now I'm entering a new phase of rediscovering myself, maybe solo. The table went dead silent. Everyone looked from her to me except Jill, who was nodding supportively like this wasn't a bomb being dropped in the middle of chocolate cake. I took a slow sip of water, set down my glass, and looked directly at Beth. Let me know when your lawyer's ready. Mine already is. Her face, freaking priceless. She tried to laugh it off, putting her hand on my shoulder. Oh, Mike, always the logical one. I'm just talking about personal growth. Logically speaking, I replied calmly, this sounds like a negotiation. My counsel is standing by. Then I turned to Dan and asked about his new camera equipment. Just moved the conversation along like nothing happened. Beth stood frozen for a minute before sitting down. Jill mumbled something about an early morning and left before coffee. The party broke up pretty quick after that. That night, Beth tried damage control, claiming I'd misunderstood her toast. I just nodded and said, time will tell. If so, she glared, I'm taking everything, Mike. The house, the business, you'll be left with nothing. You will be nothing without me anyway. I cracked a half smile. Then this should be easy for you. 3 days later, official divorce papers arrived. Game on. I knew it was coming, but seeing those papers still hits different. Beth filed on a Tuesday. By Wednesday, her lawyer was calling mine with a settlement offer that basically ignored our entire prenup. She wanted 50% of everything, including my premarital assets and business equity, plus the house, plus alimony based on my potential future earnings. It was delusional. When my lawyer told me the offer, I actually laughed. Is she serious? They always start high, he said. But there's more. They're filing for an emergency financial order to freeze joint accounts pending resolution. That wasn't funny. That was a problem. Within 48 hours, our joint accounts were indeed frozen by court order. Her filing claimed I was hiding assets and making threatening statements about financial abandonment. Complete bullshit, but effective bullshit. The court plays it safe with these claims initially. More bullshit followed. Her complaint included vague allegations of patterns of control and emotional manipulation, claimed I isolated her from friends, despite the countless social events she hosted at our house, belittled her business aspirations, despite fronting the capital and ongoing expenses, and used financial leverage to keep her dependent, despite the separate accounts and unlimited spending. Reading it made me sick. Not just because it was false, but because someone I'd loved for a decade could so casually paint me as a monster to get more money. It was calculated character assassination, plainly meant to pressure me into settling just to avoid the public smear. Then, the real ambush began. Her lawyer convinced a judge I might be cooking the books at my company. Next thing I know, I've got some court-appointed bean counter crawling through every invoice and receipt from the last 3 years. This wasn't just about our marriage anymore. They were coming after my business. The business I'd built before I even met Beth. The auditor questioned everything. Why did this project go over budget? Why was this employee paid a bonus? Why did we use this vendor instead of a cheaper alternative? Every business decision I'd made was suddenly suspect. My CFO spent days pulling documentation instead of doing his actual job. Someone, wonder who, made an anonymous complaint to my company's HR department claiming I created a toxic work environment and was emotionally unstable due to divorce proceedings. HR had to investigate, which meant awkward conversations with my team and executives. Look, Mike, we know this is bullshit, my VP of operations told me, but we have to go through the motions. It's impacting morale, though. People are worried. I had to call an all-hands meeting to address the elephant in the room. Yes, I'm going through a divorce. No, it won't affect the company's stability or your jobs. Yes, there are some legal proceedings involving our finances. No, there's nothing improper to find. Let's all stay focused on our projects. Easier said than done. The distraction was constant. The cherry on top, one of my biggest clients, a commercial developer I'd worked with for 8 years, called to express concerns about whether my personal situation would affect our ongoing projects. I had to drive to their office for an emergency meeting to keep them from pulling 3 contracts worth over $1 million in revenue. He eventually agreed to keep us on, but with additional oversight that we'd never needed before. The trust was damaged. The hits kept coming. My business line of credit suddenly got reviewed by the bank. My personal credit score dropped 85 points from all the inquiries. The health insurance company accidentally removed me from our family plan. My mail started disappearing from our box, including court notices, which nearly caused me to miss a hearing. For 2 weeks straight, I barely slept. Not because I was heartbroken over Beth. That ship had sailed the moment I heard her plotting with Jasper. I was awake because everything I'd worked for was under threat. My company, my reputation, my financial security, all because I married someone who decided my decade of support entitled her to everything I owned. My lawyer kept me grounded. This is exactly why they're going nuclear, he explained. They want you desperate, sleep-deprived, and willing to settle just to make it stop. Don't give them what they want. I'd sit on my deck at 3 a.m., thinking about the situation. I was watching a woman who lived rent-free in a mansion I paid for try to paint me as the villain while cashing checks with my name on them. The whole time, Beth was posting these vague, inspirational quotes on Instagram. Stuff like, sometimes walking away is the strongest move, and know your worth, then add tax. Her followers ate it up, commenting how brave she was. If they only knew. This wasn't about love anymore. This was financial warfare. And despite the initial hits, I still had two aces up my sleeve. The weeks after Beth filed were brutal. The legal system isn't built for innocent people. It's built for process. And that process is slow, expensive, and favors whoever strikes first with the most dramatic claims. Every morning started with some new emergency. A motion filed, an account frozen, a demand for documents that would take days to compile. I was spending hours on the phone with my lawyer instead of running my business. We had a preliminary hearing where the judge decided on temporary arrangements while the divorce proceeded. Despite our prenup specifically saying no temporary support was required, the judge ordered me to pay Beth $8,000 a month for ongoing living expenses. This on top of the fact that I was still paying the mortgage on our main house where she was living, plus all the utilities and insurance. The judge's reasoning? Beth had become accustomed to a certain lifestyle and needed continuity during this difficult transition. Never mind that she was the one who chose to blow up our marriage or that she had her own income from her business. My lawyer tried to argue that the prenup covered this exact scenario, but the judge basically said that's for the final hearing to decide. For now, we maintain status quo. Status quo meaning Beth gets to live expense-free while I bleed cash. The court also appointed a forensic accountant to determine the true value of my business. At my expense, of course. This guy charged $400 an hour to tell me things I already knew about my own company. The audit was destroying us from the inside. The court-appointed accountant demanded access to everything: client contracts, profit margins, salary structures. My office manager was working overtime just to comply with document requests. 3 of my project managers were getting deposed about company operations. Clients were getting nervous about confidentiality. One client actually pulled a $200,000 renovation project, citing uncertainty about your company's situation. That meant I had to lay off 2 guys I'd just hired specifically for that job. Having to tell them, sorry, no work after all, was gut-wrenching. Beth's lawyer was also demanding copies of every text, email, and social media message I'd sent or received in the past 3 years. The justification? Looking for evidence of hidden assets or abusive patterns. It was a fishing expedition designed to find anything they could twist into their narrative. One Tuesday morning, I walked into the office to find my executive assistant in tears. "I'm so sorry," she said, handing me a letter. "I got subpoenaed for your divorce case. They want all my texts and emails with you for the past year." Turns out Beth's team was fishing for anything they could use: inappropriate messages, financial discussions, schedule details that might indicate secret meetings. There was nothing to find, but the invasion felt personal. They were dragging innocent people into our mess. My assistant wasn't the only one. They subpoenaed my business partner, my brother, even my elderly mother. Anyone who might have information they could use against me. My mom called me crying, afraid she'd say the wrong thing and hurt my case. She's 76 with a heart condition. The stress wasn't good for her. The temporary financial order meant I was living on a court-approved allowance from my own money while the case proceeded. I had to submit receipts for anything over $500 to the court to prove I wasn't dissipating assets. Meanwhile, Beth had somehow gotten approved for a higher monthly stipend than mine, despite having virtually no living expenses. The system at work. I had to move out of our house, the one I paid for, and into a one-bedroom apartment. Not because the court ordered it, but because staying under the same roof as Beth was becoming dangerous. She was baiting me into arguments, then recording them secretly. Once I caught her editing a recording of us discussing bills, cutting out her provocations, and leaving only my frustrated responses. My attorney costs were approaching 6 figures. The business disruption was costing more. I had to take out a personal loan just to keep up with all the expenses: legal fees, temporary support, 2 households, plus the ongoing company audit. I had to lay off 2 more employees because we'd lost another major contract during all this chaos. That was the lowest point. Watching good people lose their jobs because of my personal shit. People with families, mortgages, all collateral damage in Beth's war against me. On top of all that, my doctor diagnosed me with stress-induced hypertension. Started me on blood pressure meds at 45 years old. Said if I didn't get my stress under control, I was headed for a heart attack. I'd lost 15 pounds without trying. Just couldn't eat with all the stress. I almost gave up. My friends tried to be supportive, but most were couples who knew us both. They felt caught in the middle. A few guy friends stuck by me, but others went silent, afraid of getting dragged into the mess. The isolation was almost as bad as the financial bleeding. That night, I sat in my sad apartment, looking at settlement scenarios. Give her the house and 40% of everything to make this go away? It would hurt, but at least there'd be certainty. I could rebuild, maybe sell the business and start over somewhere else. As I stared at those numbers, something clicked. This felt familiar. Like I'd been here before, ready to cave just to end the pain. Then I remembered, this was exactly what Beth did to me for years. Create enough discomfort that I'd pay any price for peace. Not this time. I called my lawyer at 11 p.m. We're not settling. Not 1 cent more than the prenup specifies. In fact, I want to countersue for legal fees based on bad faith negotiations. He sounded more awake than anyone should at that hour. That's what I wanted to hear. And actually, I've been doing some digging that might interest you. I told him to try his best. 2 days later, my lawyer and I met with Beth and her lawyer for a settlement conference. I hadn't seen Beth in person since she moved out. She looked good. New haircut, expensive outfit, trying to project success. Her lawyer started with the usual bullshit about amicable resolution and fair division, then laid out their final offer. Still ridiculous, but slightly less delusional than before. They'd generously come down to 45% of all assets and reduced alimony demands to just 7 years instead of permanent. My lawyer let them finish, then slid 2 folders across the table. Before we respond to your offer, we have some information to discuss, he said calmly. He opened the first folder. This is the prenuptial agreement Mrs. Reed signed when you married. Standard document, fairly generous given the circumstances. Beth's lawyer nodded impatiently. My lawyer opened the second folder. This is the updated prenuptial agreement Mrs. Reed signed 5 years ago during your mortgage refinancing on the lake house property. Beth's head snapped up. What updated agreement? My lawyer continued like she hadn't spoken. This document includes additional clauses that significantly alter the terms in certain circumstances. He highlighted the key section. In the event that either party makes claims of emotional abuse, financial control, or similar allegations that are not substantiated by clear and convincing evidence, the asset division shall be modified to 85% in favor of the accused party and 15% to the accusing party. The color drained from Beth's face. I never signed that. My lawyer slid a document toward her. Your initials are on every page. Your signature is on the last page, notarized. You even added a smiley face next to your name, something you always do. I looked directly at Beth. You did read the document, right? You initialed every page. Or were you just rushing to get to your luxury retreat in Sedona that weekend? She had no answer, because she hadn't read it. She'd been so excited about the 5-day spa retreat I'd surprised her with, she'd signed whatever I put in front of her, with minimal explanation, gold digger classic moves. Just refinance paperwork, I'd said. Which it was, partly. Her lawyer tried to recover, but mine wasn't done. We hired a forensic accountant, my lawyer said, opening another folder. Beth forgot to disclose $320,000 in jewelry, wired $175,000 right before filing, and faked her business reports. He showed transfers Beth made to an LLC in Wyoming that traced back to Jasper. Then came the emails we recovered. Beth used the same password for her business email as our Netflix. The messages between her and Jasper laid out their whole plan, including him coaching her to seem afraid of me in public and his 15% cut of whatever she got above the prenup amount. Beth gripped the table edge. Her lawyer looked sick. She thought she could outmaneuver a man who built a company from scratch, I said. The moment she doctored those transfers, she played herself. Her lawyer asked for a break. When they returned an hour later, his tone had completely changed. Perhaps the original prenup terms would be acceptable after all. My lawyer pushed harder, demanding the updated agreement terms and legal fees. 2 days later, they caved completely. Long story short, 1 month later, the divorce was final. Beth got her 25%, nothing more. I kept the house, my company, and my dignity. Of course, Jasper ghosted Beth when the money wasn't what they'd planned. Her supplement brand now offers financial empowerment for women seminars. The irony isn't lost on me. Me? I'm dating again. A real estate agent who makes her own money and hates drama. No moving in, no joint accounts. The prenup lesson from my dad was the best inheritance he ever gave me. Beth didn't want a husband. She wanted a mark. She just picked the wrong one. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Story 6. Told my ex-in-laws their cheating daughter isn't my problem anymore. All right, let's start from the beginning. So, me and Jess, we were together for 7 years, married for 2 of them. We waited to have kids, because we wanted to make sure we were good financially first, just trying to be responsible. Anyway, things were going fine for a while, or so I thought. After we hit that 2-year mark, we decided it was time to try for a baby. That felt like the natural next step for us. Looking back now, I don't know how I missed it. The little signs were there, but when you're in it, you don't see them. I just thought we were having the usual ups and downs every couple has, nothing major. I mean, I loved Jess. I thought we were in this for the long haul, but man, was I wrong. So a few months go by, we're trying for a kid, and I'm feeling pretty good about everything. I'm thinking about the future, picturing what life's going to be like as a dad. I had no clue what was coming. One night, I was at home just chilling, and I noticed Jess was acting kind of weird. She was on her phone a lot more than usual, but I didn't think much of it at first. I figured maybe she was just chatting with her friends or something. But then she started staying out late, saying she had work stuff or that she was meeting up with friends. Now, at this point, part of me was like, hey, maybe something's up. But the other part of me didn't want to believe it. I trusted her, you know? You don't marry someone unless you trust them, right? So I brushed it off. But things kept getting stranger. She was distant, and I could feel this tension building between us, like we were in the same room but miles apart at the same time. I remember this one night. She came home super late. I'd already gone to bed, but I woke up when I heard her come in. She was trying to be quiet, but I could tell something was off. I asked her where she'd been, and she gave me some half-assed excuse about work drinks running late. She didn't even make eye contact when she said it, which was the first real red flag for me. But still, I let it slide because I didn't want to start a fight. I wasn't ready to face what I was starting to suspect. Things kept spiraling after that. Jess would go out more and more, and whenever I tried to ask her about it, she'd brush me off or get defensive. I didn't want to be that guy, the paranoid husband accusing his wife of cheating, so I kept it to myself. But deep down, I think I knew what was going on. I just didn't want to admit it. I didn't want to believe that the woman I loved, the woman I was trying to start a family with, would do something like that to me. Then, one night, everything came crashing down. I was at home, Jess had said she'd be working late again, and I was just sitting there, feeling like something was really wrong. You ever get that feeling in your gut? Like you just know something bad is about to happen? That's what I had. So, I did something I never thought I'd do. I checked her phone. Now, before anyone jumps down my throat, I know it was a shitty thing to do. But at this point, I was desperate. I needed to know what the hell was going on. So, I unlocked her phone and started going through her messages. And there it was, right in front of me. All the proof I needed. She'd been texting some guy, Derek or something like that, for weeks. They'd been meeting up behind my back, and from the looks of it, things were way more than just friendly. My heart dropped. I couldn't believe it. I felt like the floor had been ripped out from under me. I didn't even know what to do. I sat there, staring at her phone, reading the messages over and over again, like maybe if I read them enough, they wouldn't be real. But they were. Jess had been cheating on me. I waited for her to get home that night. I didn't even know what I was going to say. I was just sitting there, stewing, thinking about all the lies she'd told me. When she finally walked in the door, she looked at me and knew something was up right away. I could see it in her eyes. I didn't waste any time. I just showed her the phone and asked her, "What the hell is this?" She froze. For a split second, I thought maybe she'd try to deny it, but she didn't. Instead, she started crying, like full-on sobbing, and I just stood there waiting for some kind of explanation. But all she kept saying was, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to happen." Didn't mean for it to happen? That's the thing that really got me. How do you not mean to cheat on your husband? How do you just accidentally betray someone like that? I wasn't having it. I told her right then and there that I wanted a divorce. She lost it. She started begging me to forgive her, saying we could go to couples therapy, that everyone makes mistakes. But I wasn't about to sit through therapy with someone who had been sneaking around behind my back for months. I couldn't believe she had the nerve to act like this was something we could just work through. Cheating is a deal breaker for me, always has been. Once the trust is broken, there's no going back. I think what pissed me off the most was how she tried to act like this wasn't her fault. Like she was some kind of victim of circumstance, or like I should just accept that everyone makes mistakes and move on. But I'm not that guy. I don't forgive cheating, ever. So I stuck to my decision. I told her there was no going back from this, and I was done. The next few days were a blur. I filed for divorce, and thanks to our prenup, it all went pretty quickly. Jess kept trying to get me to change my mind, though. She'd call me, show up at the house, even try to talk to my friends to get them to convince me to give her another chance. It was pathetic, honestly, but I wasn't about to let her worm her way back into my life. In the end, I'm just glad I had the prenup in place. It saved me from a lot of the financial mess that usually comes with divorce. I kept everything, my house, my savings, because she was the one who screwed up. It didn't make the situation any less painful, but at least I didn't lose everything on top of it. And that's how it all started, the end of my marriage and the beginning of the mess that followed. I didn't realize then just how much damage it would do to me emotionally, but trust me, that part's coming. 3 years later, and I'm still dealing with the fallout, but we'll get to that. All right, so fast forward to after the divorce. Like I said, I cut all contact with Jess. I wasn't interested in any kind of closure conversation or whatever. I just wanted to move on. So I changed my number, moved to a new place, and basically went full ghost mode. If I could have erased her from my memory, I would have. I wasn't even trying to hate her at this point. I just wanted to forget she ever existed. Those first few months after the divorce were rough. I mean, I wasn't out here crying myself to sleep or anything, but there was this emptiness. It's hard to explain. It's like when you've been with someone for so long, they become part of your routine, part of your life, and then suddenly they're just gone. Not that I missed Jess specifically, but I missed the idea of what I thought we had. That was the hard part to let go of, the life I thought we were building together. I remember one night I was sitting at home drinking a soda and just thinking about how everything went to shit so fast. I mean, one minute we're planning for kids, the next minute I'm signing divorce papers. It's crazy how quickly your whole life can flip upside down, but I guess that's life for you, huh? During that time, I started going to therapy. I wasn't super keen on it at first. I had never been the therapy type, but after everything that happened, I figured I could use some help sorting through the mess in my head. And honestly, it ended up being one of the best decisions I made. My therapist helped me realize that a lot of the stuff I was feeling wasn't just about Jess cheating. It was about a bunch of other things I hadn't dealt with, like growing up, I never really learned how to express my emotions. My family wasn't big on talking about feelings. You just sucked it up and dealt with it, you know? So when Jess cheated on me, I didn't know how to handle the betrayal. It was like all these emotions I had bottled up my whole life exploded at once, and I didn't know what to do with them. Therapy helped me unpack all that. Anyway, enough about that. Here's where things get interesting. 3 years pass. I'm doing better. Still not 100% over everything, but better. I'm focusing on work, going out with friends more, even started dating again, though nothing serious. I'd occasionally think about Jess, but not in a I miss her kind of way, more like a I hope she's miserable kind of way. Yeah, I know, that's petty, but whatever, it's how I felt. Then one day I'm at the grocery store just minding my own business when I see them, Jess's parents. Now I hadn't seen or heard from them since the divorce, so this was completely unexpected. My first instinct was to just walk the other way and avoid the whole situation, but of course they saw me before I could make my escape. Jess's mom, let's call her Susan, came up to me all teary-eyed and emotional. I could already tell this was going to be some kind of guilt trip. Her dad, Tom, was with her, looking all solemn. I could feel the tension in the air before they even opened their mouths. And I was right. Susan immediately starts telling me about Jess. Apparently, Jess had been in a car accident. A bad one. She was in the hospital, in serious condition. I remember standing there, just kind of blank. Like, I didn't know what to say. What was I supposed to feel? I wasn't exactly happy to hear she was hurt, but I also wasn't about to start feeling sorry for her. Susan kept going, saying how Jess had been through so much, how she was struggling, and then, get this, she asked me to visit her in the hospital. It would mean so much to her, Susan said. Despite everything, you were such an important part of her life. I almost laughed. I couldn't believe she actually thought I'd go visit Jess after everything that happened. Like, was she serious? I looked at her and all I could say was, Jess isn't my problem anymore. I thought that was a pretty reasonable response given the circumstances. But of course, that didn't go over well. Susan's eyes got all wide and she started talking about forgiveness, about how I should let go of the past and show some compassion. Compassion? For the woman who cheated on me? Yeah, no thanks. Tom, who had been silent up until this point, finally chimed in. He was calmer than Susan, but still gave me this look, like he couldn't believe I wasn't rushing to Jess's side. He said something about how everyone makes mistakes, and that it would be good for both me and Jess to make peace. Now, this is where I might have gone a little overboard. I was already pissed off that they were trying to guilt trip me into caring about Jess, but when Tom started in with that everyone makes mistakes bullshit, I lost it. I told them that Jess could rot in that hospital bed for all I cared. I know, harsh, but it's how I felt in the moment. I reminded them that she was the one who cheated, not me. I didn't owe her anything, especially not forgiveness, and I certainly wasn't going to go pretend to care about her just because she had an accident. Then I threw in the fact that they always defended her, even when they knew she was in the wrong. They always made excuses for her, like her cheating was somehow my fault. By this point, Susan was crying, and Tom just shook his head at me like I was the bad guy in all of this. They tried to say some more stuff, but I wasn't interested. I just walked away, leaving them standing there in the middle of the grocery store. Later that night, I got a call from my dad. Turns out, Jess's parents had reached out to my family to complain about how cold I had been to them. My dad was on their side, saying I should have just visited Jess to be the bigger person. My sister agreed, but my mom, thank God, was the only one who actually backed me up. She said I didn't owe Jess anything, and she was right. Still, it turned into this big family argument. Some of my friends even got involved, giving me their 2 cents. Some thought I was being too harsh. Others thought I was completely justified. And honestly, I didn't care what anyone thought. I wasn't going to feel bad for not rushing to Jess's side like some knight in shining armor. She made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. So yeah, that's where I'm at. Jess is in the hospital, her parents are mad at me, and my own family is split down the middle over whether or not I should have visited her. But you know what? I'm not losing sleep over it. She's not my problem anymore. Update 1. So, after that whole mess with Jess's parents, I thought things would calm down. Like, I wasn't expecting any more drama. But clearly I was wrong. Because a few days later, I got a text from my sister Emma. It was one of those messages that you just know is going to lead to more crap. She said we needed to talk about what happened with Jess, and that she wanted to come over. Now, I wasn't really in the mood to deal with more lectures about how I should have handled things differently, but Emma's my sister and we're pretty close, so I agreed. I figured she just wanted to give her opinion and get it off her chest. No big deal, right? Well, wrong again. Emma shows up at my place, and before I can even offer her a drink, she's already diving into the whole Jess situation. She starts off by saying she understands why I'm angry, but then she goes into this whole thing about how I should have visited Jess in the hospital just to get closure. Closure? I had my closure 3 years ago when we signed the damn divorce papers. I told Emma straight up that I wasn't going to pretend to care about someone who betrayed me like that. I mean, why would I? Jess was in my past, and that's where I wanted her to stay. But Emma kept pushing, saying stuff like, what if it was your last chance to say something to her? Or, what if something worse happened to her? I could feel myself getting more and more frustrated. It's like everyone just forgot what Jess did to me. She wasn't some innocent victim who needed my sympathy. She was the one who wrecked our marriage. So, I asked Emma flat out, if someone did to you what Jess did to me, would you be running to their bedside? Emma went quiet for a minute, and I thought maybe I got through to her. But then she hit me with, it's not the same though. You guys were married. You shared a life together. And honestly, that was it for me. I was done with the conversation. I told her I didn't want to hear about Jess anymore and that I wasn't changing my mind. Jess could deal with her problems on her own. Emma wasn't happy with that, but she eventually dropped it and changed the subject. We talked about other stuff, work, family, whatever. But you could feel this weird tension in the air. It was like she was still thinking about the whole Jess thing, even though we weren't talking about it anymore. After she left, I felt this weird mix of anger and confusion. I mean, why was everyone so caught up on me visiting Jess? I didn't owe her anything. She cheated on me, and I moved on. Simple as that. But it seemed like everyone else just couldn't let it go. A couple days later, I found out why. I get a call from my dad, and he's pissed. Like, I could tell from his voice that this wasn't going to be a casual conversation. He says we need to talk, and he's on his way over. Now, this was weird for my dad. He's not the kind of guy who just shows up unannounced, so I knew something was up. When he gets to my place, he's fuming. He doesn't even sit down before he starts laying into me about how I disrespected Jess's parents and how I should have at least shown some decency by visiting her in the hospital. He goes on about how he raised me better than this, and how disappointed he is in me for being cold-hearted. At this point, I'm just standing there, dumbfounded. Like, what the hell is going on? Why is everyone acting like I'm the bad guy here? So I try to explain my side, but my dad's not having it. He keeps saying that family is important and that I should have done the right thing. And that's when it clicked. It wasn't just about Jess. It was about my dad's past. Stuff I didn't even know about. See, during this whole rant, he let something slip that I never expected. Apparently, back when my parents first got married, my mom had cheated on him. I had no idea. This was news to me. And now, suddenly, everything made sense. Why my dad was so insistent on me forgiving Jess. Why he was so pissed that I wouldn't go visit her. He was projecting his own shit onto me. I remember standing there, just staring at my dad, trying to process what he'd just said. My mom had cheated on him? My dad, the guy who had always been the family man? had gone through something similar to what I did, and he stayed with her. That's when I lost it. I didn't yell or anything, but I was just so damn frustrated. I told him straight up, I'm not you. I'm not going to forgive Jess just because you forgave mom. And he didn't like that at all. He got real quiet for a minute, and then he just said, You don't understand. It's not that simple. But here's the thing. It was that simple for me. Jess cheated. I wasn't going to forgive her. End of story. We went back and forth for a while, and it ended with my dad storming out of my place. We didn't exactly leave things on good terms. And honestly, I didn't know how to feel about it. On one hand, I understood why my dad felt the way he did. He'd been through his own shit, and I guess he thought that if he could forgive my mom, I should be able to forgive Jess. But on the other hand, I wasn't him. I wasn't going to let what she did slide just because he made peace with his own situation. The rest of that week was awkward. My dad didn't call, and I didn't reach out either. I figured we both needed some space. But the whole thing left me feeling weird. Like my whole perspective on my parents' marriage had just been flipped upside down. I kept wondering if I should talk to my mom about it, but at the same time, I didn't want to stir up more drama. A few days later, I got another text from Emma saying I should talk to Dad and make things right. But I wasn't ready for that. I needed to process everything first. I mean, it's not every day you find out your mom cheated on your dad and that your dad stayed with her for decades without you ever knowing. It messed with my head, big time. So that's where things are at now. My family's a mess. Jess is still in the hospital, as far as I know, and I'm just trying to figure out how to deal with everything. All I know for sure is that I'm not going back to that life. Jess can stay in the past, and I'll keep moving forward, whether my family likes it or not. Update 2. All right, let's get into what happened next. So, after the whole argument with my dad, things were pretty tense. We didn't talk for a few weeks, which wasn't normal for us. Like, I'd always been close with my dad, so this silent treatment thing was new territory. My sister Emma kept texting me, trying to play peacemaker, but I just wasn't ready. I needed space to figure things out, especially with all this crap I learned about my parents' past. Anyway, one night, I'm sitting at home, just watching TV, trying to unwind, when my phone buzzes. It's from a number I don't recognize, but it's late, so I'm curious. I pick it up, and guess who it is? Jess. Yeah, out of nowhere. I don't even know how she got my new number, because I'd changed it right after the divorce. But there she was, texting me like it was normal. The message wasn't long, just a simple, "Can we talk?" Like, seriously? After 3 years of no contact, she just pops back into my life with a "Can we talk?" like we're old friends catching up. At first, I didn't even respond. I just sat there staring at my phone, debating whether I should just block her and move on. But curiosity got the better of me, and I texted back, "What do you want?" It didn't take long for her to reply. She said she wanted to clear the air, that she'd been doing a lot of thinking since the accident, and that she needed to apologize properly. I wasn't buying it. I mean, she had 3 years to reach out and apologize, and now she decides it's time, right after her parents tried to guilt trip me at the grocery store? Yeah, no thanks. So I told her straight up, there's nothing to talk about. We're done. I figured that would be the end of it, but Jess wasn't letting it go. She kept texting, saying she had things she needed to explain, that she was sorry for what happened, and just wanted me to hear her out. Honestly, part of me was tempted. I wanted to know what she thought she could say to make up for what she did. But at the same time, I knew nothing she said would change anything. So I didn't reply after that. I figured ignoring her was the best way to move on, but of course, that's not where this ends. The next day I get another text, but this time, it's from Emma. She tells me that Jess had reached out to her too, and that she was trying to make amends with everyone. Apparently, Jess had been going through some kind of life-changing moment after the accident, and now she wanted to fix all the things she screwed up. Emma, being Emma, thought I should give Jess a chance to explain herself. She kept saying, "What's the harm in hearing her out?" But I wasn't about to let Jess weasel her way back into my life just because she had a near-death experience. I told Emma to stay out of it, that it was between me and Jess, and that I wasn't interested in rehashing the past. Things were pretty quiet after that. A few days went by and I didn't hear from Jess again, so I figured she finally got the message. But just when I thought it was over, I got a call. This time from my mom. Now you gotta understand, my mom doesn't usually call me unless something serious is going on. We're not the type of family that checks in with daily phone calls or anything like that. So when I saw her name pop up on my screen, I knew something was up. I answered, and right off the bat she says, "We need to talk about Jess." I was already exhausted just hearing her say that. It felt like no matter how hard I tried to leave this chapter of my life behind, everyone was determined to drag me back into it. Turns out, Jess had reached out to my mom. Yeah, she went there. I guess she figured if she couldn't get through to me directly, she'd try going through my family. And in classic Jess fashion, she managed to manipulate my mom into thinking she was some sort of victim in all this. My mom started talking about how Jess had been through a lot since the accident, and how she'd changed, how she was genuinely sorry and just wanted to talk to me. I couldn't believe it. I told my mom flat out that I didn't care how much Jess had changed. It didn't change what she did to me. But my mom wouldn't drop it. She kept saying things like, people can grow, and it wouldn't hurt you to hear her side. I was getting more and more frustrated. It's like no one in my family understood how much Jess's betrayal messed me up. They all acted like it was this small thing I should just get over. But it wasn't small to me. It was my whole damn life that got turned upside down because of her. After a while, I just told my mom I didn't want to talk about Jess anymore. I wasn't going to visit her, I wasn't going to talk to her, and I wasn't going to let her back into my life. I thought that was the end of it, but my mom hit me with something that stopped me in my tracks. Jess is dying. Yeah, that's what she said. Apparently, Jess's injuries from the accident were worse than I'd realized. She was still in the hospital, and according to my mom, the doctors didn't think she had much time left. My mom said that's why Jess was so desperate to talk to me, because she wanted to make things right before it was too late. Now I don't know how to describe what I felt in that moment. It wasn't sadness, but it wasn't relief either. It was this weird mix of emotions that I wasn't ready to deal with. On one hand, part of me thought, well, that's karma, I guess. But on the other hand, it felt heavy, like this person who'd once been such a huge part of my life was about to die, and here I was, refusing to even acknowledge her existence. I didn't know what to say to my mom. I just kind of sat there, letting it sink in. My mind was racing, trying to figure out how I felt about all of it. After a long pause, I finally said, I'll think about it. And that's where I left things. I didn't make any promises, but I didn't shut it down completely either. I guess I needed some time to process everything. So now, here I am, stuck in this weird place of not knowing what to do. Do I visit Jess and give her the closure she's apparently looking for, or do I stick to my guns and keep her out of my life, even if she doesn't have much time left? I don't know, man. It's a lot to think about, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. Part of me feels like I'd be doing the right thing by giving her a chance to apologize, but another part of me just can't shake the anger and betrayal. I guess we'll see what happens next. Update 3. Alright, so here's what went down after that whole mess. I spent a few days just sitting with it, trying to figure out what to do. I kept thinking about what my mom said, about Jess dying and how this might be my last chance to talk to her. It was weighing on me, but not in the way you'd expect. It's not like I suddenly felt bad for her or anything, but it's hard to explain. I guess I was just stuck in my own head, going back and forth on whether I should give her that closure she was asking for. One night I couldn't sleep, so I went for a drive. It's something I do when I'm stressed, just driving aimlessly until my brain quiets down. I ended up parking in front of the hospital where Jess was staying. I didn't even plan on going there. It just kind of happened. I sat there in my car, staring at the entrance, debating whether to go in or just leave. Part of me wanted to get it over with, and another part was like, why the hell are you even here? I sat there for probably an hour, maybe more, just thinking about all the crap she put me through. Every lie, every time she went behind my back, all the begging during the divorce, trying to get me to forgive her. And now she wanted me to show up at her bedside like none of that happened? It didn't feel right. But still, there I was, in the parking lot of the hospital at 2 in the morning, thinking about walking in there and talking to her. Eventually, I said, screw it. I got out of the car and went inside. I wasn't even sure if they'd let me in, considering the time, but the nurse at the front desk was cool about it. She pointed me in the direction of Jess's room, and before I knew it, I was standing outside her door. I didn't go in right away. I stood there, staring at the door, my hand on the handle, trying to convince myself to walk through it. Part of me still wanted to turn around and leave, but I'd come this far, and I figured I might as well see it through. When I finally opened the door, Jess was lying in bed, hooked up to all these machines. She looked different, not just because of the accident or the fact that she was sick, but something else. She looked tired, worn out, like the years had taken more from her than I'd realized. It was strange seeing her like that after all this time. She didn't notice me at first. She was staring out the window, lost in her own thoughts. When she finally saw me, her eyes widened, like she couldn't believe I actually showed up. For a few seconds, we just stared at each other in silence. I didn't know what to say, and I think she was too shocked to speak. Eventually, she broke the silence. I didn't think you'd come, she said, her voice soft, like she was struggling to get the words out. I shrugged, trying to play it cool. Yeah, well, here I am. There was another long pause, and then Jess started to cry. Not the dramatic, attention-seeking kind of crying she used to do back when we were together, but something different. It was quieter, more real. It caught me off guard because honestly, I didn't expect her to have any real emotions left for me. I'm sorry, she said, her voice shaking. I know I don't deserve to ask for your forgiveness, but I needed you to know that. I just stood there, not really knowing how to respond. I mean, what do you even say to that? I wasn't about to tell her everything was okay because it wasn't. But at the same time, I wasn't there to tear her apart either. I don't know what you want me to say, I finally replied. You broke my trust. You broke us. That's not something you can just apologize for and expect it to go away. Jess nodded, still crying. I know, she whispered. I know I hurt you. I was selfish and stupid, and I don't expect you to forgive me. But I'm sorry for everything. For ruining what we had, for not being the person you deserved. Hearing her say that was weird. Part of me felt like I should be angry, but I wasn't. I wasn't angry anymore. Maybe I'd been angry for so long that I just ran out of it, you know? I was still hurt, still carrying that weight around, but the rage I used to feel wasn't there anymore. I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized how much time had passed, how much we'd both changed. And in that moment, I realized something. Closure wasn't about her. It was about me. I'd been holding on to this anger for years, thinking it was protecting me, but really it was just keeping me stuck in the past. And maybe seeing Jess like this, so vulnerable and broken, made me realize that. I don't hate you anymore, I said, surprising even myself with how calm I sounded. But I'm never going to forget what you did. Jess nodded again, tears still streaming down her face. I wouldn't expect you to. We sat there in silence for a while after that. I didn't really know what else to say, and I think Jess was too drained to keep talking. There was this strange sense of finality in the air, like we both knew this was the last time we'd ever see each other. After a while, I stood up to leave. Jess looked up at me, her eyes still red and puffy from crying, and said, Thank you for coming. It means more to me than you know. I didn't say anything back. I just nodded and walked out of the room. As I made my way back to my car, I felt this weird sense of relief. It wasn't like I forgave her, but I didn't feel as weighed down anymore. Like, maybe that chapter of my life was finally over, for real this time. I got in my car, sat there for a minute, and took a deep breath. For the first time in a long time, it felt like I could finally move on. And you know what? That felt pretty damn good.